No. Technology? Oh, that's even better. Okay. I'm Janet Gendron, and I've been with a committee that's now called Access South Carolina IT, ASK. It used to be called ATAC. And we have been around for quite a while, and I've just been really active in this committee. I used to work at the Assistive Technology Program, the group that does that expo every year, and now I'm retired, but I'm still working with this committee. The committee's about to go under an independent living center called ABLE, South Carolina. And we're getting some money from the government, state government, that has been in this pot we've been using for several years. It's kind of hard to explain what ASK is, but we're going to be growing a lot under ABLE and doing a lot more of this kind of thing. And we also have a web testers program where we use people with disabilities, mostly visually impaired, and we test web pages for accessibility and usability. You may have heard of some of this, you may not have. And I actually had 4 kids that went through Richland 2 schools. And I was on the Health Advisory Council for about 8,000 years until the last one graduated. And I can't believe I don't know anybody in this room, which tells you something. We also have Clay Jeffcoat, who works for the School for the Deaf and the Blind. And some of you probably know him because he works directly with students. He is in part of the outreach program, and he works with curriculum and education and accessibility. And then Matt, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, because he's been several places in the time I've known him.
Okay. I'm actually a webmaster, one of the webmasters for SCD&R, and I've also been a webmaster for SCP-Head, and been passionate about accessibility and joining the ASCII and the ATAC groups for, 7 years now, almost. And we presented these things at a bunch of different conferences, and want to help you guys do what you can to improve usability and accessibility.
So basically, I'm the global person, Matt's the tech, and Clay is the demonstrator, because Clay uses the screen reader JAWS to do everything, and so part of this is going to be his demonstration. So now y'all can take a break, and I'm going to launch into this lickety-split thing, remember? That's who we are. Then I know y'all probably know this, but who's affected is everybody. It's not just people with visual impairments. A lot of the same things that apply to someone with a visual impairment also help someone with a learning disability. And then if you think about it, I don't know if y'all know any students who don't use a mouse at all, but use maybe an on-screen keyboard, or there are people who use eye gaze technology where you calibrate the keyboard with your eye to move the mouse. And so there's a whole lot of kinds of technologies out there. And then, of course, people with older people with learning disability and people with learning disabilities, it's a lot of the same principles, and it's kind of like a curb cut. A curb cut is there for people in wheelchairs, but if you look at this picture, you'll see how many other people need that curb cut. Somebody who can't see in front of them very well, which would be somebody carrying pizza, a mom with a stroller, somebody carrying a waiter carrying something they could easily spill. So a lot of the things that help a website or electronic information be accessible are the same things that help everybody. And so it's kind of a universal design issue. And then the other thing that we want to make a big point about is that everybody's always concerned about Section 508, which is the law that applies to web-based information. There's three main federal laws, and so what people forget is that being usable is more important than being accessible by the law. So that you could have a tag on a graphic, but if it's not a good tag, it may meet the law that there's a tag there, but if it's not a good descriptive tag, then it's not usable. Navigation is another one of those things. Consistent navigation makes it more usable to everyone. So you remember how the site works when you go back to it. Clay depends on that dramatically because he doesn't see the site. So he doesn't go back to a site where it switches templates every time you go to another page. And that's why this book, Don't Make Me Think, is a pretty good one because it talks about usability. It's kind of an old book. There's some testing tools that, has anyone here heard of Wave? Good, this is a great audience for us then. Wave is a toolbar, and it's also a site where you can plop a URL in there, and it shows you all kinds of different things about a web page or the electronic information on a web page that you just wouldn't even know about. And I'm going to show you a few screenshots of that. Also, this presentation is going to be available somehow to you all. I don't know whether, I have it in a Dropbox, but, you know, don't feel like Travis is going, yeah, you'll get this. So don't, you can take screenshots of anything you want, but also it will be made available. We've made it available to a whole lot of people. So those are some of the tools. And then we have ARIA. Anybody here heard of ARIA? It's kind of a new thing, and Matt knows a lot more about it than I do. But it's an alternative to some of the old ways of making things accessible. Is that a pretty good statement? What's happened with this, all of this, is that we started out with issues, and then technology, guess what, changed. What a surprise. So the way things were written and worded years ago really don't apply when we see how many we didn't even think about handheld devices when this was all getting started. So it changes, changes, changes. So I don't know if you all can see this very well, but this is Wave on the Richland 2 homepage, and you see what it does. It shows us errors, which are 0. That means nothing is seriously wrong, and you can thank Travis for that. And then, but you do see there's 97 alerts, and that's saying, oh, you might want to know about this. And then there's 26 structural elements. That's the heading structure, and that's good. And then you see what else you can do is you can look at the code behind everything, and it highlights where it highlights what it's talking about. So for a web developer, this is invaluable. You can go right in and almost immediately see a lot of the things you need to be thinking about. Then here's a bigger summary of what's on your web page, just the home page. But then you see it breaks out alerts, and it tells you that there's a lot of redundant link text on the Richland 2 pages. And I'm going to let Clay explain to you why this is a little aggravating to someone with a screen reader. Clay, I'm going to give you the mic.
Okay, so on with your screen reader, which we will demonstrate in a little bit, it's pretty smart in the fact that it pretty well reads the actual source code of the website and verbalizes it. It doesn't read all of the junk, but it reads the content. And so it knows when you travel over a button or a link that is exactly what that is, and it's going to tell you that's a link because then you can click on it. Well, if your text of the button or the form field has the actual, let's say you move over a button and your alternative text on that button says submit button, your screen reader is going to say submit button button because it knows that it's a button already, but it's reading the text that's written on the site. So, anytime you have a control on a website, what you want to make sure is that the text associated with that describes what it's supposed to do, but it's not necessary to put the type of control in the text as well.
And you'll see that you can go there and it tells you in really nice terms. This all comes from an organization called WebAIM, which is the best. If you really want to search something, just look for your question and put WebAIM after that, and you'll get the best written, the least technical writing that you'll find, and it tells you what the issue is. And then you see over here on the bottom right, it tells you where in the law you find that. And so you can go to the web page for Section 508 and see what you're really dealing with. So just using Wave is an educational process unto itself. Now, y'all see that Roadrunner up there. Do you know what that means? We're going to go lickety-split through the next bit here because it's a lot of laws. And I have them in here because when people go back to this PowerPoint to maybe use it for their own presentations, all that information's there. But we're not going to go into all that, and aren't you glad to hear about that? The two big federal laws are Section 504, and these are of the Rehab Act, and then Section 508, which is basically started out to be a procurement law, saying if you have federal money, don't buy any products that aren't accessible. That's a pretty big order, isn't it? And then Section 504, I think probably a lot of you know quite a bit about, but that's a non-discrimination law. So what happens is they use the one that they think works the best at that time. So the phrases in Section 504 are things like this: substantially equivalent, ease of use. So if you've got a kid who can use a Kindle and it doesn't have a screen reader, It's not ease of use to tell somebody with a visual impairment who needs a screen reader that you can listen to a tape. It's not the same experience. And that was the big thing. Everybody ran off and got Kindles, and none of them had screen readers, and all kinds of things happened because of that. I think I have a slide on that. So then what happened is that we had these laws in the Access Board, which is architectural, just like buildings are architectural, websites are architectural too. And so they asked the Access Board to come up with enforceable standards. In other words, our technology is newer than our law is, and they spent about 10,000 years finally coming up this past January with their final rule. We kept hearing about the 508 refresh, and they finally did, and it's all this hoopla. It's really a lot of hoopla because it's the same principles, and that's what we're going to show you today. So, but one thing I noticed is they quit calling, we were calling it web pages, and then we were calling it electronic information, then it was electronic information technology, and now the new phrase is information and communication technology, and they have a nice, beautiful definition of that. But what it did was include more devices and less of the software and the internal stuff. So here's a summary of the major rules. And one thing, we had two things going on. We had WCAG, and then you see, what is WCAG? There's a lot of acronyms in all this. And then we had Section 508. So what they did was put more of WCAG, which is an international standard, into our US standard, which is 508. And this tells you what WCAG is. It's a work group under the World Wide Web Consortium, which is abbreviated W3C. So there's a whole lot of players going on. And I just put this here if you ever need to know. It makes it pretty clear, because it's not important that you understand this right now necessarily. WCAG made things more global. 508 said, do this, do that, do this, have a skip nav. Whereas WCAG said, we're going to put it into broader categories and look at it more organically. And so that's the basic summary of that bunch of laws. Then what people don't realize is the big law driving web accessibility and the lawsuits and everything else is the ADA, because the information architecture on a website is the same as a building. So we have the ADA, and you're going to see a bunch of lawsuits in a minute, and you'll see how many more are ADA than others. And then we've got the IDEA, which totally fits into this, because we're using the internet and electronic information technology in the classroom more and more and more and more. When we started all this, I remember going to a meeting. It was a state government committee, and there was a school district that had one computer in the whole school district. And now you see 20 years later what we're looking at. So it just, you can't escape it. And Travis will tell you, when somebody calls your attention to the law, the first thing a lot of people want to do is say, well, we don't have to do that, do we? That doesn't apply to us. You look for a loophole, well, don't bother. It just doesn't, it's not going to help you. And so what the Department of Education did is come out with those Dear Colleague letters, and there was some very specific when that whole Kindle thing blew. And so those are those letters. Then we have a few laws in South Carolina. We have some standards that this committee, I mentioned, ASCID, that we came up with, but they were in the middle of kind of revising those, and basically they follow the same stuff as Section 508, refresh. What's made it interesting in our great state of South Carolina is that we just got, that people have been paying some attention to us, and it's a strategy that is being used. The first thing that happened is we have complaints. We had audits by the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights, and they're trying to have a strategy of making a lot of impact. So they went to the South Carolina Technical College system and they audited. They did a little audit. Well, if you audit anyone, you're going to find problems. There's no website that's perfect out there, none, zero. And so they found some issues and they brought it to the technical college system's attention, and so they reached an agreement for training and evaluating. It was kind of loose, but they reached 16 tech schools with that one audit, so that's their strategy. Then they went and looked at charter schools, because we had more online schools in most states. And so they went to charter schools and said, hey, you have some issues with your online learning, and that again was not a complaint. Then, lo and behold, last summer, we get a little call from the Department of Education, our state department, and there's been a complaint filed. And then Richland too. Travis said, who are you? Somebody up at the Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights said, contact Janet Gendron. And he said, I don't even know who you are. And I said, well, here's who we are. And because we work with charter schools, and they remembered how effective we were, because we worked with instead of telling people what they had to do. Because that's how we do it in South Carolina. You join somebody's church if you want to change their mind. You don't file suit. I mean, that's my opinion. I've been around a long time. And then Greenville County also got. But I want to tell you that, and I told, remember, Travis, we sat at this first meeting and I said, it's a compliment that they singled you out. Yeah, they did. Yeah. And so, but it is, and let me show you why. Because I am going to become a private investigator. I have found out where all those complaints came from, because you look it up, they're all over the place. I mean, all over the United States, things are cropping up. One woman did all this. She's an advocate for students with disabilities, and she lives in Michigan, and she filed 400 complaints all over the United States, and I have no doubt this is where the complaint Richland 2 got. That's the source. She filed 400, and so the Office of Civil Rights can't do 400 cases, so they opened 175. And of that, Richland, I say we because I feel like I'm part of Richland too, we were one of them. Well, that's a compliment because they went after school districts and departments of education that they thought would respond well and make a difference. And they didn't go after that little county that only had one computer. They chose carefully, and they chose, I think it's an honor that we were chosen. Matt said this morning, maybe they found out that y'all just built this beautiful building.
Let's have some money. Do stuff, make real change.
So here's people who are keeping track of this, just in case some people are real interested in all this lawsuit stuff. And then the strategy of a lot of the federal lawsuits has to do with higher ed, that's med schools, law schools. Because when someone can't fill out an application to get in a law school or a medical school, that really jeopardizes a potential future. That's what Judith Rich told me anyway. She's the lawyer of the Office of Civil Rights. And then here you see what laws have been used, and this is not even all that current, but you see there's mostly ADA, a little 504, and a little 508. And then I found a beautiful little thing that Travis didn't even read, but he already knew to do it when the complaint hit the road. There's an Education Week blog that they said, don't get all upset about it, and don't throw a lot of money at consultants and expect them to fix everything. And I've gotten those calls. We want you to audit every single page of our website and tell us how to fix it. Well, if you're ready to spend $1 million, that would be your approach. But Travis did exactly what this. You didn't know this was going to be all about how good Travis is, did you? But I want to. I know. We're going to get Travis a pay raise. That's our next goal. So it's one thing that's noteworthy, though, is that Netflix, Target had a big old lawsuit, and they didn't want to do anything to fix it, and they wished they had fixed things from the beginning. It was amazing. And then the other biggie, I think, would be the Netflix, because they're not captioned, and you have to be. So they're captioning. And now we're going to go into barriers, and in a minute I want to go through some of the specific things that get in the way. And remember, this is not just web pages. I know anybody here design web pages? Yeah, well, you still need to know this, because it's all your Word documents, it's if you work in Publisher, whatever you're working in, these principles apply.
Not just design web pages, but actually write content. Does anybody actually write content on web pages? You gotta talk to talk.
Oh, yeah.
Content for web pages. That works too.
Well, and it's content in Word documents. It's content everywhere. And so I've got a little link here. That's why I hope you'll get this PowerPoint, because this link is a really good one. It's new, and it shows how different technologies are used to access the internet on a computer, and it's not just a laptop. There's many other devices. So now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the title and headers. When Clay opens a web page, he wants to see it the way a sighted person would see it. And that does not mean start at the first word on the top left and go every word all the way down to the bottom right. We wouldn't want to do that. What do? I look at the headings. I look at the main sections. And unless it's tagged correctly in Word or whatever you're using, then he doesn't know what the main sections are. And he's going to show you that in a minute. So this is web coding, but you need a structure with headings that is logical. Instead of just saying, I want to make this heading of my section be blue, bold, and a certain font, and I like that look. You can do that, but you need to label it as heading 1, heading 2, because that's how Clay's going to hear it, and he'll show you what he means later. Do you all understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. No? Who doesn't?
Design your website like you would a research paper with an outline.
Well, anything you design it like an outline.
Yeah.
And you know, when you do it in Word, and Matt's going to show you a lot of that later, when you do it in Word, then you pull up the table, it generates an automatic table of contents, which is lovely, because that's how Clay pulls up and says, what are all the heading 1s? What are all the heading 2s? Well, if you've got something that's a heading 1 labeled as a heading 3, then it's not, and you've chosen something that is automatically labeled that, then it's a little confusing, and it's not, this is not hard to do. Yes?
So we're a Google school district. Does Google have this?
Google's pretty good.
We need to go into Word and use it.
Well,
Sorry about you guys use Google Docs to process Word kind of files and do that kind of stuff. Okay, we'll talk about some of that later.
yes and no, but Google's good. For the MailChimp is good. I'm just saying that some people thought about accessibility to start with, and they're one of them. So, besides heading structure, we also, when you're labeling, how many people here label your graphics? When you put a graphic in a document, you give it an alt tag.
She's a star sprint.
Okay. I know. She's also nodding a lot. Thank you very much. When I talked about eye gaze, she went, yeah, she knew what that was. So, you want to say what it is. Clay doesn't want to read a page in here, graphic. And I'm telling you, the Department of Transportation, the DMV had 183 unlabeled graphics on their webpage years ago. So you heard graphic, over and over. And then I went back 3 years later and it wasn't fixed yet. Because nobody filed a complaint, I guess. So there are times when the graphic doesn't mean anything of information. It's just there to be pretty. So you can give it a null alt tag. And this is, you do this in Word, you do it in other, in PowerPoint, if you format the picture, it gives you an opportunity to give that graphic a tag. And so if you put just 2 quotes without anything in between, then screen readers will skip that. And the reason we didn't make this PowerPoint available is I haven't done that for all the graphics yet, because I changed them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know, Clay. Thank you, Clay. I'm going to go back, and I'm not a good example because I should have done it every time I slapped that graphic in there. While it's there, you format picture and you go do the alt text. You don't give it a title in a PowerPoint. You go to the description part. So what the standards say is meaningful alt text. So that's a subjective thing. If you're working with a bunch of engineers, they don't care about the red rows to make the site look pretty, so that's information not interesting. But if you're in an elementary classroom with kids in 3rd grade, it might be important to know what that is. So it's where the venue makes a difference in what the alt text should be. So there's some pretty good resources there. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is skip navigation. If you've ever noticed on a website, you'll see skip to main content, and it's up at the top. Sometimes you don't see it, and there's a big controversy about whether you should see it or not, and I think it should be visible because people with screen enlargers may be at the top of the screen and not see anything but that, and they want to be able to skip to the content, and they can't. That's why you see that girl underwater. She can't get to the top. You can't get to the main content because there's so much else in the way. And so I believe it should be visible. There's lots of different ways to do that now. But what that means is, instead of listening to all the menu items from the top of the page on through all those drop-down menus, all the navigation, all the blah blah blah. Clay can skip to content and he goes to the paragraph that gives you your information. Huge, that's huge. And then we find a lot of times, Clay, if you want to say more about this, are you going to show skip now?
Yeah, we'll do the whole page here.
Okay, so we'll see if it's there. There's ways around it. Sometimes the template, there's just other ways to do it, but he needs to be able to do it. And then link text. This is where I get a little angry. He pulls up a bunch of links. He'll say, show me all the links on this homepage, because I do that. I look at what the links are. Where can I go from here? That's how I look at a web page. Sometimes that's my focus. And so if it says click here, or more, download. If you don't know what you're downloading, if it doesn't tell you where you're going, it's not meaningful link text. And just think for a minute about that. Now, he's pretty good at saying, what's the context? You know, he'll read before that, and he'll see that it's talking about a document, or it's a part of an article, and you're going to read more on another page, but it's just not a good idea. And so I've given you some alternatives. Instead of saying, please click here to download your certificate, which is messy writing anyway, you can download your certificate. And so you see examples. We're going to see more and more of this. But think about when you're doing a hot link. If somebody just saw that link, would they know what's going on? And you can do it without writing paragraphs that are links. I promise you can. And a little bit more on link text. You should format them so that they stand out a little bit. You try to make them succinct, and I said describe. But another thing, that you don't need to say picture of. Same thing with alt text. You don't want to say picture of, because it's already known that it's a picture. And that's that redundant thing he has to listen to. If you put captioning and you put the names of the people underneath the picture, you don't need to put that in your alt text, because he's going to have to hear those names twice. So it's probably better to put the caption in the text of the main article or document, and then you don't have to, then you could almost put a null alt tag for the actual picture itself. This is the home page link text. This is what Clay sent me, and he's going to do this in a minute, but you see your link text is very good. It's a little long, but that's okay, because if you know that you're going to view all news. And then I love learn how to apply, sign up to participate here. So I don't know, I'll tell you what, y'all have one of the best websites of any school district in the state. So it's a compliment.
So I know there's some questions after this about how that's generated. A lot of these links are done automatically. So some of the links that you see in the site, you don't have to worry about, so like menus and that sort of thing, are all generated automatically. But what I say, and I think I have mentioned this before, but that's usually derived from how you're titling the text to begin with. So if you create, and Clay's going to show you a perfect example on our homepage, unfortunately it shouldn't make it on the spot here, where it reads a link, but what it's reading is I'm a Arissa 2, and then it goes ... So when you're thinking about titling your links and your menus, think about if this was read out loud, what's it going to sound like? So if you put parents and use the tilde, it's going to go parents tilde. So just remember that.
Yeah, fancy is overrated. That's what I have to say. And Clay says it's interesting that he'll show you. You jump right to main content. Then here's your renting facilities link text. And what happened here for Clay is he said he didn't realize that district policy was going to be a PDF, and that would have been helpful for him to know that that's where he was going. These are really minute details. So now we're going to switch to Clay, and where's our genie over there? He's going to show you how he reads so that now you understand a few of the principles that he's going to demonstrate. You want the mic?
All right, is that a...
You're switched.
You're on.
Okay, good deal. All right, so what I have here is your website, and I'm going to refresh refresh the page just so you guys can kind of hear what the screen reader is going to say.
Maybe have it at your speed.
It's supposed to.
You do this down before.
Right.
Oh,
There it is.
oh,
Alright, so it's not saying anything because I haven't loaded it fresh. Normally I would get a summary at the beginning of the site that would tell me when it comes up how many regions, how many headings, how many links are on the page. And we can actually close this out and pull it back up a minute and see if it will tell us.
So he gets an overview
Yeah,
before he's even started to get information.
let's see. We'll give that a shot. Just
close document window, enter.
Alright, we'll be quiet here.
www.ic.gov. See user's check of favorites again. 2 enter. 1 0.
You're actually on your,
Do it.
there you go.
Home Internet Explorer. Oh, page has 2 regions, 13 headings and 41 links.
All right, 2 regions, 13 headings, and 41 links. Would you like for me to slow that down for you guys?
Yeah.
All right.
It's called necessity. I'll tell you what.
Slower.
If Clay and I did a competition for finding information on a webpage, he would beat me.
Oh, I thought she was going to say if we did a competition between my computer and you talking. who would win.
Stop it.
She talks fast.
For a southerner, which I'm not.
All right, so your homepage gave me a little bit of information about the structure that's on the page, and we are going to start at the very beginning where it says home. That's the title of your page. Now, depending on the way a site is written or the way it's structured, Janet had a very good point that a site is really kind of a architectural structure. It's just like if you guys have noticed, no 2 bathrooms are the same. It's kind of like going in a different bathroom for me every time with a different website. You got to find where everything is. So on your home page, one thing that's very interesting is that you guys have a lot of your main content right at the top. I don't have to plow through 150 links on navigation on how to get to your different schools and departments and this, that, and the other. Whenever I start at the top of your page, I get the first thing that comes up is
Inspiring success.
inspiring success,
Learning community character joy.
learning community character.
Click learn about the 4 squares to success.
All right, you've got to learn about the 4 squares to success.
Blank. Heading level 2 from the newsroom.
And it starts right there with a heading level 2 from the newsroom. And what we mean by headings, for those of you, is everybody kind of familiar with how heading structure works? Anybody not familiar with how it
Well,
works?
they're
Go
gonna,
ahead and talk.
you're gonna know a lot
All right,
more.
we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, Matt's gonna.
All right, so for me, a heading structure is like an outline for a research paper or a table of contents. If I am looking for a particular major section in your website, I may navigate by heading level 1s, which are the main big sections. If I am looking at all of the little nitty-gritty subsections of your website, I may navigate by either level 2 or level 3, just depending on how it's broken up. So it's kind of like your, I guess it's kind of like your science or your social studies book where you've got chapters and you've got sections and subsections. And I know that a lot of people use heading structure because if I label this portion of text as a heading level 3, it's going to appear a certain way on the screen, and that's what I'm going for. But a heading level 3 may not really fit the structure or the content of the site. So Matt and Janet, I think, will talk about the fact that there's other ways to achieve the same look, but be able to keep the heading structure the same. So if I pull up the headings on this page, let's see if I can get want to do this one-handed.
Links list dialog. There is currently an open job. From the new, select a form field
Right,
dialog.
there's your form.
From the newsroom toolbar not found.
All right, so I can do this one-hand, let's try this.
Heading list dialog. Headings list view. From the newsroom view all news 2, 1 of 13.
All right, so you have 13 headings on this page. Your first one is the View All News, and it's a heading level 2.
4K enrollment opens February 3.
All right, here's your 4K enrollment. It's a heading level 3. So what would you assume if this
From the newsroom,
is a level 2,
4K.
this is a level 3? What would you guys assume if you couldn't visually look at the page?
That it's part of number 2.
Right.
Yes, it should be part of number 2. Now, it very well may be, or it very well may not be. We can continue down and look.
Join Teachers Guild 3.
Here's a Join Teachers Guild. I'm assuming that's
From
part
the
of
newsroom.
from the newsroom. I'm not sure.
Join upcoming events view calendar 2.
All right, here's your calendar.
All positions recruitment fair 3.
Here's your recruitment.
Community
fair.
conversation 3. School board meeting 3. Future chefs competition 3.
Oh, there we go. Now that's what I'm talking about. I'm gonna taste test that.
Inclement weather makeup day students attend classes 3.
Okay, that sounds like kind of calendar-ish, you know, telling you that you got students.
End of third 9 weeks 3. Contact us 4.
All right, there's a contact us, and that's a heading level 4.
Click here to learn about Richland 2.1.
And here's a click here to learn about.
Click here to go to our contact page 1.
Okay. All right. So you got your heading level 1s down there. So
From the
to illustrate this, let's say I want to look at all of the major headings on the page. If I just navigate by heading level 1s, here's what I'm going to get.
Click here to learn about Richland 2 heading level 1
Click here to
link.
learn.
Click here to go to our
Go to our
contact page heading
contact
level 1
page.
link. No more headings.
And there's no more headings on the page at the level 1.
No more headings at level 2 in this section.
So I need to go back to the
Oh.
top. And if I go by level 2s,
From the newsroom,
From
view
the
all
newsroom.
news heading upcoming events view
Upcoming
calendar
events.
heading left. No more headings at
and
left.
you only have 2 headings there, okay? So navigating the website by its structure, or having a heading structure is very important, and you guys have one.
Inspiring success. Learning community
so-
character joy.
It's very interesting. So on this site, here's your main homepage, and you do not have this big navigation bar. At least there may be one on the screen, but my screen reader's not grabbing it first. You also have regions on your page, which is very nice. So usually on a site that has implemented regions, I'm not going to say correctly because that's a matter of opinion, I guess tastefully. They have like a navigation region and a main region. So if I want to go to the different regions on the page, I can hit the letter R.
That's actually tagged in a certain way when you code the page. I'm not sure that transfers very well to documents. I'm not sure how they could tag it on documents, but it would actually be, if any of you guys have seen web coding before, instead of being a little greater than, less than, with a P in the middle of it, it actually has the word main, or section, or article, or nav, or header, footer. Those are the regions that he's talking about, and you can navigate by those as well. And there's appropriate things that everybody knows you put in those sections.
So in this case, we have a banner region. Obviously, I'm assuming that contains the banner.
Content information.
Here's your content information.
Bracket the top banner.
Okay, so you just have basically 2 regions on your site. You have a banner region, and let's see what's
Visit the link graphic return to the home page.
Here's return to home.
Explore our schools. Banner end.
All right, so there's only a couple things in there.
Edit. Go button list of 7 items. Visited link home.
Now, here's all of your
Link
navigation.
I'm Richland 2 ...
Oh, there you go. I'm a Richland 2 ... I really like that because it's kind of it's.
Clay has a
Should I be in?
large imagination.
Yeah.
He likes feeling lucky.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's feeling lucky button on Google.
Link about Richland 2.
Here's about Richland. Now, what does it say? You guys listen again.
Link superintendent.
What did that say?
Links are
All right, good. What if y'all had put superintendent link in your alternative text? You would
Link
have had-
superintendent link. It was-
There you go. Exactly. So you got it.
Link school board. Link departments. Link news. List end.
All right, and these are all in lists. Obviously, there's some sort of list structure that's in the back end of this.
Link. Heading level 4. Contact us.
And then there's your contact us. So I kind of like, you have a region that gets me to the navigational areas, but I'm not presented with the navigational at the very top. That's kind of a different approach. And I kind of like it in the fact that I get the content of the page before I get all the gibberish that I have to plow through, but yet it's still easy to find. So I do not see a skip nav on here, and there may be a good reason for that, and it might be because the navigation is not at the top, or it doesn't read as if it's at the top.
Visually, it appears at the top. Structurally, it is not.
Isn't that interesting? So,
It's okay.
One of the ways that you can,
Yes, you do.
no, I don't.
That's it.
one of the ways that you can test is a really good first impression of whether you know that a screen reader is going to read your page logically, the structure headings are there, is to do a right click on the web page and do a view source, and that way you'll see the source code. It may look like a lot of gobbledygook, but you should be able to identify a heading section, navigation, a main section of the content, maybe a footer, those kinds of things, and it should be presented in the same order that it would be read. What we're saying here is that the coding for the navigation, even though it's coded and set to appear at the top of the page visually, it's somewhere else in the hierarchy of everything on the coding of the page. But the way that the page is coded, it makes it switch up to the top. And you notice as he was navigating, nothing changed on the screen up here. Nothing moved around. It doesn't actually go to that, because all of it is existing in kind of the background for that program that he's using.
So I'm going to bring up a list of links here.
Links list up.
You guys see how your links look pretty nice as far as being able to go to a specific.
News. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter.
Oh my goodness, you guys have that too.
Watch us on YouTube. Click here for site translation options. Elementary schools, middle schools.
Yeah, so I mean, your link text is right on point here. And normally, if I'm on a site that I know like the back of my hand, and I know where I want to go on it, I will either search for or I'll pull up a list of links because I can always press the first letter of the link that I want.
Learn about the four squares as accept.
And go directly to it. So it's much quicker for me to do that than it is for me to plow through the site if I know exactly where I want to
I
go.
thought that said learn about the force. That was really cool. Excellent.
Does anybody have any questions before we move on to the next section? Does anybody want me to look at anything else on here? You have a
Contact us at Rapid the Top. Explore our schools edit.
You have your edit box here. I don't know if that's really supposed to be labeled Explore Our Schools or whether it's supposed to be a search box.
Do it again.
It's a
Rapid the Top. Explore our schools edit.
Explore Our Schools is the
It is a graphic. It's a hamburger style menu. So it's an actual. I think that's right.
Okay.
I mean, it's right. It's
I will say the contrast on that got a ding from Wave.
Gray,
Oh,
the
gray on
the light gray.
I'm going to show that later. Small things. Are we ready to switch us?
Yes.
It's working good. Okay, now data tables. Imagine you're Clay, and you are trying to read a TV schedule, and it reads you everything across, just like it's text. So you're hearing 9:30, 10:30, 11:30. You have no idea what that means. That's why I have this maze here. Unless you tag the table up so that he knows what that cell in the table is, he needs to associate the column and the row information with what the piece of information is in that particular cell. And Matt's going to show us how to do that in Word with tables. That's called a data table. A lot of people used to use tables for layout. People aren't doing that much anymore. But when you put information in a chart or a table, it needs to be labeled correctly. And this is to show you when you can use a toolbar with Wave and you can examine tables and it'll show you there's a table header, a table row, and it shows you what's labeled or not. And like I say, Matt's going to go into a whole lot more of this. Your calendar is a Google calendar, right? And it's very, very well constructed as a table. And I think Clay's going to read that later. In fact, remember that, because I sent you that link, didn't I?
Yeah.
He'll show you how he reads that. He's got all those options because you see it's got month, agenda, and week. Well, the agenda view is really friendly to a screen reader, so that's awesome. That's the agenda view in calendar. Actually, yeah, this is Clay. We're going to have him show. I think you are up next with the calendar.
Okay.
And he's going to show you the calendar, and he's also going to show you a form. Think about a form. He needs to know what to put in that edit box before he gets to. He doesn't have to hear there's a box and not know what to put in it. He needs to know if it's required or not. And then when he starts to submit a form, he needs to know that it actually was submitted. Because, think of a bank. We have one of our web testers is David Bundy. David says, I paid a credit card bill something like 15 times because I didn't know it had submitted. So then his bank overdrew, his bank account, and then he had all that hassle. It's because he didn't know that it went through. I know y'all are not so responsible for that kind of form development, but part of this whole thing is an awareness thing of what it's like to not be able to see and access electronic information. Communication technology, excuse me.
How many of y'all design forms and put them out for people to see, help people scan them out? We'll brush on some of the basics of that. When you use Google Forms, there's mechanics in the development process that allow you to generate the text that's needed so that people can use those screen readers.
All right, you guys ready to look at the calendar? All right.
Your calendar actually looks really nice. Your calendar is...
Does somebody disagree?
No, she was getting nervous.
Oh, good.
Is she the calendar person?
Do you actually design the calendar, or do you put content in the calendar? All right. So you guys have a calendar that appears to be a set of tables. Each table is a different week. Your table consists obviously of 7 columns and 2 rows per week. The rows being the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday across the top, or the events across the bottom. These tables are not labeled per se in that if I'm on row 2 and I'm moving across row 2, which is the place where the events would be, it does not read me the column title at the top, which should be your date, and then read the cell. However, since this is only a 2-row table, I don't find it to be that big of a deal. Normally, if you have your row and column titles defined in your tables, if I'm on that 2nd row and I'm moving across, it will read me the cell at the top and then read me the contents of the cell I'm in. So it would keep me knowing what column I'm in. Or if you had a, picture a very large data table. How many of you guys deal with like really big data tables with just numbers galore? Or how many of you guys have ever looked at an online TV listing where it shows what channel and what time slot? Okay. So think about this. If I am in a table like that, and I am moving, I have gone down the left-hand side of the table, and I've found the day of the week that I want. And then I start moving across that row, and my row and column titles are not defined. I'm going to get the names of the shows that are coming on, but it's not going to read me this time slot at the top, 9:30 to 10, 10:30 to 11. So I'm not going to know what column I'm in. And then let's say that the column titles are defined, so I know I'm in the 9:30 to 10 o'clock slot, and I say, oh, okay, I found a show. What other shows are coming on that on other days of the week during the same time slot? So I start moving up and down, and my row titles are not defined. I don't know what day of the week I'm on, which is on the left. But let's look at your tables here.
Table with 7 columns and 1 row.
Okay, well, it says table with 7 columns and 1 row.
Mom.
You have Monday,
2,
Tuesday,
Wed,
Wednesday,
2,
Thursday,
Friday, Saturday.
Saturday. I kind of hope you have that, right?
Table length, blank.
All right, so that's your table at the top that kind of tells you all of your tables are going to have Monday through, or Sunday through Saturday.
Table with 7 columns and 2 rows.
All right, now this is your first one. Table with 7 columns, Sunday through Saturday, right? 2 rows.
26.
26.
27, 28. Mark 1.
March 1st
2.
and 2. And I like the fact that it has March 1 there, so I know that the
Mark 28.
The 28th was February. Obviously, February only has 28 days, but
Mark 1.
sometimes you're dealing with
2.
some special people.
3, 4, 7 p.m. school board meeting.
All right, so now I'm going to move across the bottom row of this table, and let's let's see what we get.
Blank, column, blank at beginning of row.
All right, on the first, nothing, or on the,
26, blank,
26,
row 2.
nothing.
Blank, column 2.
Move your screen.
Oh.
You can only see the top half of the screen. If you want.
Blank.
Yeah. Just slide it around. Sorry, the screen reader is actually, again, it's reading the site, but it's not actually moving your cursor so that you guys can see it. All right, so let's try it again.
Not in the table.
No, of course not, it's not on the table.
Thanks, Janet.
Table with 7
We'll
columns.
just go to this one, sorry.
Bottom of top of column on, column on, 2, web 2, process table, blank, blank, table with
There we
7.
go. Now, can you guys see it now?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Blank, rows, blank,
All right,
column
I'm
2.
moving across.
7 p.m. school board meeting,
All
column
right, so
3.
there's a school board meeting at 7 p.m. So all I have to do is go up one cell
28, row
to
1.
see that that's on February the 28th. Did anybody attend that meeting over there?
I did.
The school board meeting?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
7 p.m. blank, 1 p.m. all positions recruitment fair,
All
column
right, so
5.
at 1 p.m. on, I'm going to go up a cell.
2, row 1.
I guess that's March 2nd. There is a recruitment fair. All right. So you guys kind of get how this works. It's only 2 rows, so it's not that bad. Now, if it was, 500 columns wide, then it might become more of a problem. But
If
it's,
they were all one big table,
oh,
we had
if-
7 columns with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows.
that would be.
Then he'd have to navigate back up to know, remember, is that a Thursday or a Friday? Was it Monday through Sunday, or was it Sunday through Saturday? So it's just like, if you were to try to navigate the TV guide, it's the same thing.
Picture it like this. If you guys were looking through this, or looking through a TV guide, and you can only see one cell at a time, with like looking through a cardboard tube. If somebody wasn't standing beside you, tapping you on the shoulder, reminding you what cell you were in, it'd be kind of difficult, wouldn't it, to figure it out?
So what would it look like for you now to go down 2 days from that to the 16th and see what that event is?
You mean 2 weeks from now?
I meant 2 weeks, yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right. So what I would do, since I have kind of figured out this table is 1 table per week, it won't let me navigate.
1 p.m. on bottom of
It won't let me navigate out of this table and down to.
Table
I'd
end.
have to go.
blank, blank, table with
I'd have
7.
to go to this table.
5, 6,
skip it,
7, 8, 9.
Or actually, I'll just use this.
Because
one.
it's structured in order, you go from that table to the start of this one, and he's got to go through all of those first. You can't go down.
Blank, blank,
Now,
They're
so
structured on top of each other and coded.
table
You
with
can't
6.
go through, you have to go through all of them to get to it.
which date were you talking about?
So I was talking about the 16th, there's an event there. I
Circle
think you wanna hear
15,
about it.
16.
There's the 16th.
Yeah.
And below it.
4 p.m. future chefs competition, row 2.
Say, look at you. See, that's just wrong. You keep reminding me of this. All right, so what I would do, I can navigate this. This isn't terrible. What I would do, though, is this.
Table with 7
Back
columns.
to the top, I just navigated by table, so I used a shortcut key to skip through the tables.
Table blank, agenda clickable.
If I go to the agenda, now, check this out.
Graphic print my calendar shows
And it lets me print my calendar.
print clickable, blank, blank, week clickable, blank,
Now, I can adjust my agenda view
Blank.
by clicking on the week,
month clickable,
or I could go by month.
blank, blank, agenda clickable,
And here's the
blank,
agenda.
blank, showing events after 3/2.
And it
Look for
tells
earlier
me-
events clickable.
It tells me which events it's going to show me, and it tells me that I can click there to show earlier.
Thursday,
events.
March 2nd, 1 p.m.
All right, I'm going down. It's basically I'm sitting down there.
All positions recruitment fair, Wednesday, March 8th, 6 p.m. Community conversation.
Is that the way it reads for you guys?
Yes.
Okay. So for me, now, obviously you guys probably visually would like to see those little squares and everything, but for me this is very convenient.
Tuesday, March 17th, school board meeting.
And I'm sure
Thursday, March 16th,
There.
4 p.m. Future chefs competition.
there we go. Future chef. We'll stop on that.
Can we move to forms
Sure.
right now? Now, what I want you to do is show the Department of Education, South Carolina, travel request authorization form. Because again, think about, he needs to know if he made an error It needs to take him back to where that error was and not show something highlighted in red.
Asthma Symposium, South Carolina Department of Education.
Oh, no, that's the video.
Home. Address and search. New tag page. Asthma Symposium. Google search at calendar. Future chefs competition. Asthma Symposium. www.ed.sc.gov.
I was looking for a website and we were,
The website makes you download the Word document.
yeah.
Fill it out.
All right, so here is a Word document. Is everybody familiar with the Word document?
Blank.
All right. We are at the top of the Word document,
Blank.
and it has several blank lines at the top. I'm assuming, so if you print this, it would go on some sort of letterhead. Very familiar with how that
Blank.
works.
Blank. 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 Please read the following instructions before using the form.
Ooh, looks like I've got instructions to read.
A note on that. See all the all caps here and how well his screen reader reads it?
Oh, is that in all caps?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It didn't show.
Didn't shout.
It's not a good idea.
Should have shouted.
Anyway, I'm showing you how well the screen reader adapts.
Okay, so it didn't read all caps, and it also didn't read all 3 exclamation points either. You
That's-
never read dot, dot, dot before.
Mm-hmm. I'm so disappointed. I wanted to shout at me.
Name of form. Travel request authorization.
I'm feeling a little bit discriminated against. It should have yelled.
Responsible office. Finance.
Sherman or something like that.
Name responsible office. Finance.
All right, so responsible.
Name responsible all contact person. Grant Gibson 43605.
Okay, so this is an example.
Date last revised on network N-03/09/16. Purpose of form. This form must be completed and approved in the state. The purpose of
Excuse me,
form.
I'm
This
sorry, I
form must
skipped
be
over that.
completed and approved in advance of departure in accordance with
Okay.
the state
So we have
Department of
this.
Education as linked.
How many of you guys actually read this?
So how do you get down to where you say,
I'm gonna
You
be
haven't even,
muting.
you
I'm
haven't
gonna
gotten to the instructions yet. That's
Oh,
all.
right.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
the
be by.
instructions are coming, that's a lot.
Let's see if there's any structure in this document.
With keys on.
Let's see if there's any headings.
Page 2, Heading 1 SC Department of Education Travel Request Authorization Form. Heading Level 2 Preparer's Name and Email. Click
Oh,
here to
well,
enter
there you
text,
go.
context 69.
All right, so there was some heading structure. Sorry, this microphone's kind of loud.
so he can get
And I
past
skipped
all
it.
that crap?
You get the instructions that yellow.
Right.
Alright.
Yeah, that it does say click here in your text. You are crazy. Look at you.
Heading
Let's
Level
see.
1 SC. Heading Level 2 Preparer's Name and Email. Click here to enter text, context 69.
All right, so it says click here to enter text, and it tells you that there's a text box that you're supposed to type in. What I like about this is the fact that it tells me what I'm supposed to type in the box versus just saying edit, not knowing.
Table 1, non-uniform table. Heading Level 3 Personal Information. Row 1 of 30, column 1 of 3. Traveler name and employee vendor number selected. Row 2 of 30,
All right.
column 2 of 3. Division/office selected. Row 3 of 30, column 1 of 3, column 2 of 3.
All right, so here, I'm putting this down, it would be loud.
Divisions and a row. Heading Level 2 Travel Purpose and Destination. Row 4 of 30, and a row. Travel destination address. Row 5 of 30.
Okay, so these are all places that you should be able to type in things.
Edit. Click here to enter text. Column
And there
2
we
of
go.
3.
So you should be able to type that information into that box.
Row 6 of 30.
And you guys did, in this instance, use a table, and I'm assuming you used a table for layout.
Row 7 of 30. Row 8 of 30.
Yeah, this is the DOE.
Yeah, so,
Checkbox not checked. Row 9 of
Oh,
30.
now look there. Here's a good, there were some good examples, and now here's a bad example. What does this checkbox mean? To me, it says checkbox, and it tells me it's not checked. Any ideas? What does it visually look like?
Yes.
Is it very intuitive?
it
It has
says,
a
yeah.
question in front of it.
Well, if you notice, as he navigated to them, the first one said, preparer's name and email, click here to enter text, and then gave the size of the text box, whatever it was. Okay, as you went through the other ones, because you're navigating, if this is all the same table on like a calendar, when he's navigating down, he can go one cell down. He doesn't have to go left or right. But these columns and the rows aren't meshing together. So it's not reading to it that the first click here to enter text, which again is redundant, this said travel destination address. What it needed to say was click here to enter your travel destination or address. Even though it makes the form look bad, it's got the information that he and other people that are using this kind of technology need to navigate this table.
The one thing that I noticed when I first entered this table is it says that this is a non-uniform table, and obviously it is.
Okay, we can let the Department of Education deal with that since they've got it. But I couldn't find the form. I actually found a form that was online, but it wasn't your responsibility. And so anyway, we just want to demonstrate this. Matt's going to show you how to do things about the issues that are, go ahead.
Hopefully this illustrates what I was talking about earlier, a couple meetings ago. When I was talking about when you have a form that needs to be filled out online, this is a very good example of what I was talking about when you're dealing with somebody that can't see the form. And when this thing is reading it to them and saying, click here to enter text, but they didn't go to the column to describe what that field was for to begin with, much like that checkbox. Because I'm looking at it and it says, is travel/attendance required by a grant? Yes, no. But he didn't go to that box first. He only went to the checkbox first. So in most cases, I know you guys are doing forms that are really just information. But this is a great example of if you have one that needs to be filled out, these are the things to be thinking about in the back of your mind about if I close my eyes and I get this thing read to me, what am I going to see? Am I going to be able to fill it out successfully? So,
How does that impact Google Forms?
that's a good question.
I'm going to touch on that a little bit. Within Google Forms, when you create a question, and we can just briefly real quick, when you create a question, there's options to enter in help text, and that's what will be read out loud to this person that's using the screen reader. So when they get to that section, it'll read what the help text is. So when I said before about what it should say inside the text box, click here to, you don't have to click here. It'll read to them that there's a text box there, able to retain information. So they know there's a text box that they're navigating to. It's more important to have the text in that text box, the tooltip or whatever it's called, say what needs to be put into that. Now, it may make the form look redundant, make the form kind of duplicate itself, but as you saw, it was kind of grayed out a little bit, so it doesn't make it look too ugly. But there's a tooltip function, a line in that, and if you choose to leave it blank, then it doesn't read anything out.
What is interesting to me is that.
In Google Forms, when you make a question, there's a line there to add a tooltip.
I don't think the new Google Forms has that line.
It might not. Go back to the old forms, because they rock. I mean, they would suck.
Leave him to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I would love to answer that question for you and get back to you guys on that.
And so
I don't like it.
the comment you made about the text in the box, that watermark text, is actually not even really that necessary. Because if you can see the form, then you already know to click in that box, enter that. And so it really doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's one of those, I call it a gimmick that came around a few years back where people were putting this watermark text so that you click in it and it goes away. And it was kind of more of a visual trick than anything visual purpose. More. So don't feel like you need to put that in there because it's not really serving really no one. So it's not serving anybody that can't see or can't see, quite frankly. And yes, I'm guilty of this.
Okay, we need to switch screens, and we're going to run through color contrast. And so we're getting towards the end of this part. Color contrast is more of a problem than you think. We want to be groovy and we want to be cool. And you know, if you look at if anybody reads Real Simple magazine, it's all muted and a little bit of it's calm and peaceful, and that's not necessarily the way we need to be doing our electronic information. So color contrast, honestly, you can kind of look at it on your own. There's all kinds of ways to measure it, but you've got two little things on the top that I mentioned earlier. So just be aware of color contrast, and if you want to test it, there's ways to test it, but you kind of look at it and see. Because the problem with bad color contrast is that it's not just for people people who have blindness don't care about color contrast. As David Bundy said one time, someone said, what's a really good contrast of font to background? He said, well, black on black was just fine for me. So it's for people who get a lot of eye strain. from trying to see, and people with screen enlargers. Because it's hard to read, and yeah, they can read it, but they read it slower, and at the end of the day, their eyes are killing them. Then, I'm sure y'all know this, but we have to run through it because it's part of the law. It's that if you're going to use color to convey information that's critical, such as in this chart where the red bus line or train line, you have to know that's red to be able to understand it. So there's a lot, it's more of a problem than you would think. So just start to think, if I printed this out, this page out, and I printed it out in grayscale, or even try it, is it going to be, is all the information going to be correct?
This is an important thing because with the news sites, obviously you can go in there, and I know there's a lot of folks that like to color text, underline it, and that sort of thing. A lot of times you end up doing red. That red on white is really not good. Red on white is a bad thing for contrast purposes. You can always use that wave extension. It will tell you about contrast errors. So if you do content, you decide to colorize text, it will tell you. Obviously, yellow is one of the worst ones ever, because you might as well be using white on white for that. So just keep that in mind when you're doing content. If you decide to bold something or change the color of the text, think about the colors. Dark blues are a great choice, although that's confusing sometimes because it's the same color for links generally. But think about darker colors against a white background, usually work the best.
That's okay. Now, this is why we're all standing up here. So, we'll take a break before Matt starts to go into the how-tos of things. I'm going to let Clay read you a PDF. It's your district policy, because you'll hear a lot more about this, but he may not have a chance. He may not be here when Matt's doing that part. So PDFs, if you structure it right to start with and then you save it to a PDF, it's probably going to be much better than if you just, you know what people do is they scan a document and then scan it to a PDF, and all you've got is a graphic. And so Clay gets to that and says no content can be found. And it's got a lot of content. So basically, you'll hear more later, if you structure it right with that heading structure and alt text and link text and all that, do that, and then you save it, you're going to be in better shape, rather than going back to a PDF and trying to fix it. There's people that get paid a lot of money, companies that get paid a lot of money to do that. So learning how to do it right to start with is really helpful. So this is your district policy.
How many of you actually have read this?
Well, let me make you feel better. The USC School of Medicine's dress code is a graphic PDF. And I said, I don't have to do it because I can't read it.
Me either.
I didn't like their dress code policy.
All right, so here we go.
5 Richland School District 2 Board Policy.pdf. Policy. Community use of school and district facilities. Code KF. Purpose. The board purpose. To establish the basic structure for community use of school facilities.
So your PDF here is...
The board permits the temporary
the board permits.
any group requesting use of the school.
I'm skipping my paragraph.
List of 1 items.
Oh.
Bullet no alcoholic beverages will be sold, distributed, or used on district property.
Well, you guys are just no fun.
List A. List of 1 item. Bullet smoking is not permitted in any part of the building. List A. List of 1 bullet organizations that may be allowed to use school and district facilities. List N. All educational, religious, civic, social use school facilities. List of 1.
All right, so you got a bunch of you got some paragraphs here. You've got some ordered lists here. What you don't have is a PDF that I pulled up that says alert empty document, where a PDF and stuck it on a scanner and made a nice, beautiful, high-resolution picture of your board policy manual that I end up having to either not read or have to perform character recognition in order to get the text out of the
List N. Promulgated.
And
promulgated.
in 1 minute, will you get that when you open a PDF and it'll tell you, you want us to try to read characters and you decide yes or no? You had a question.
So if you have a Google document and you do set up a table of contents in it, you have links in it, and you download it as a PDF, those links stay. then that is workable. But if you have a document and you print it and you scan it, then it's an empty picture.
Correct.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Does that help? I hear a lot of little. Okay. I work with a lot of contracts that come into our department and they get scanned, and so I end up having to do recognition on them because we send the contract because it's got handwritten signatures and things on it, and obviously you can't, you've got to have the picture there. So I need to perform recognition on it to get the gist of which contract is this or whatever. But yeah, so a lot of things come into me that are scanned and are initially not readable. But yeah, so.
Do you guys have any of those kinds of things where you have to send something off to be signed and then brought back, so forth, create forms like that? One way around that would be to make the signature page a separate page from the document, so that he would only know that there's a signature page there. He doesn't really need to know about signatures. He needs to know about the guts of the document.
Yes.
Sorry.
Is there a point, I guess then, where some of, in years past, when we've posted, it has been, because of the website, we had to make it as a PDF to open. And it was, more so the directions were for parents to then print it off, to then be turned in by hand.
Right.
So, doing that, is that even something we need to consider, or are you strictly saying now we need to make it to where they can type into it?
Okay. Being a parent of a student in in Lexington 1, if I were to pull up a PDF that was sent to me, I don't necessarily think it would be ultimately in the end-all perfect world, it would be wonderful for me to be able to type in it and be able to print it or email it or do whatever. So that would be like the ultimate accessibility solution. Being able to read it is the most important thing. If I have to type my answers or whatever in another document or print it out and have somebody fill it out or something, that would be less accessible. And then of course, obviously, the third option is, empty document. I have no idea what's just been sent to me, whether I need to fill it out or not. It would be nice to be able to do that, to be honest with you.
You're talking about a handout, printed copy, and send
Well, I'm just thinking of things that I've been asked to post that are basically permission forms where they are registered for this event. And
Yes, yeah.
I mean, what about this?
Yeah, so to answer that is, so that you're kind of crossing into two different things here. So I talked about this before, a form that has to be printed and filled out is fine. It has to be printed and filled out. It doesn't really matter about accessibility at that point because that's the requirement. I think what Clay is getting to is that if he's sent an email by the school, say, hey, download this PDF and print it out and fill it out, what he wants to be able to do is he understands that requirement. So maybe he's got to get his kid or a relative or a friend or something to do that filling out part. But he can still pull the PDF up on his computer and have it read to him, so that he doesn't also have to get somebody to have to read it to him as well. And so that's the thing to think about. Even though you're going to send it home to have it printed and filled out, understand that somebody like Clay might actually want to read it first, and so don't scan it and send it as an image. Does that answer the question?
That is.
Maybe not.
No, yeah, I mean, it's one where it's just going to now be me putting it into applications, but no, that does.
Yeah, I think when you start, and I think most people here start with Google Docs to do this stuff, and then if you say you should be golden most of the time. You're probably going to be hitting it. You're going to be hitting it a lot better than a lot of folks. So I think you're going to be okay. I won't speak too much to that right now, but I think you'll be all right. But that's really kind of what we're getting at here is that even though it's got to be printed and filled out, and I've touched back on that because I said, printed and filled out doesn't really matter. But it does matter in case the person who has to print and fill it out still wants to know what the contents is.
Well, another interesting part of having something read to you is that there's a lot of adults with learning disabilities, and there's some high-powered techie people in the United States that read everything with a screen reader, just because they need to hear it. They don't read well with print. So, thank God we've got Google Docs now. I mean, 10 years ago we didn't have any of that. Okay, we need to switch screens. There's Magic Man back there. Some of what we've covered, Matt was going to cover, so we're going long, but it's all right. We'll get through this. ordered and unordered lists, I think you all know this, but don't number things unless the order of things matters, because it's a recipe. You do things in a certain order, because Clay hears ordered list, unordered list. So he knows if it's an unordered list, he knows that I can go to any part of this, especially if there's links. So just think carefully. I think most of you are not making this mistake. I'm not going to show this, but if you ever want to just see if things, if the order of reading is good, try to access the page with just using the tab of the keyboard. That's how he kind of does. That's what his JAWS kind of does. And so if it doesn't look like it's logical, then you've got a problem. Now we're going to talk about language, and this is sort of more my soapbox than anything else, I don't think probably many of you are guilty of it, because you may not, I find people with advanced degrees want to fall back on what they used to get their doctorate and all the things they wrote, and so you have a lot of jargon. I find a lot of therapists, speech and language pathologists and occupational therapists, they're so used to writing things in a certain language, and that's not good writing for electronic information. So I'm going to go a little bit more into this when we do emails, but you can actually do a readability test. It's easy to find, and it tells you what grade level your document is going to appeal to, and you have a grade level of about 9, which is good. That's very good. Too much language, too much clutter is not good for anyone. And then we talked about navigation. It needs to be kind of intuitive, and I think what I'm hearing is Clay, when they redesigned Rachel Intuitive, it was designed to be more intuitive for people with navigation. It's really, I've looked at a lot of web pages, and it's uncluttered. You have a nice drop-down menu that's basic stuff. It's really very good. I don't know, like I say, it's a compliment. This is just some resources. That's why I want you to try to access this. There's a whole big thing on from Microsoft. They have a wonderful tutorial about how to be accessible in all the different Word, PowerPoint, everything. So you can learn as you go. And then these are some resources. And that statement, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can, couldn't be truer when it comes to being overwhelmed with all the things I'm going to do to make things accessible. But if you start slow, I remember somebody from a big tech company years ago said, you know, if you just tag your graphics, you're 80% there. And that's not hard to do. So think of it like that and say, oh, I've got to learn how to make an accessible form in a PDF tomorrow. So don't be too overwhelmed, hopefully. And again, here's our contact information.
But we're not going anywhere.
No.
We're staying.
So
we're locked out.
We probably need a break. And then we'll come back and Matt will start his how-tos.
sorry, that way we're not here all. All right, everybody ready? There's some people outside probably, but anyway, get started.
All right. Woo-hoo. So what we're going to do here, since we now found out that you guys are pretty much all Google all the time, when Google Docs was created and they needed a word processing program to kind of emulate, Microsoft was really good at it. There was other ones out there at the time, but Microsoft was one that if you were going to migrate, you'd be like, oh man, I wish I had that from Microsoft Office. That was a really cool feature. But they managed to get a lot of the functionality, a lot of the layout and things like that, incorporated into Google Docs. So what we're going to do, the presentation that I prepared has more of creating Microsoft Office documents, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, how to create a good backbone on that, and to try to use that as when you're creating a PDF document out of that, to do something that's a little more, that is going to have that backbone in there, to be able to have that backbone already get transferred over to PDF. Somebody had asked that, like when you export it to a PDF or one of those things, that will that stuff go with it? And the answer to that is yes, as long as you do it right in the backbone. Janet alluded to the fact that people get paid a lot of money to fix these things, and yeah, it's a real pain in the butt to fix these things on the PDF side. So, I'm correct to assume that you guys don't do anything, you do all your stuff through Google Docs, right? You don't do anything really through Microsoft Word at all, or any of the Microsoft Word?
No, I would say, yes.
Okay. The principles we're going to be discussing are going to be broad and match-up, because these are from Microsoft products, but the layout of Google Docs is very similar, and you should be able to kind of navigate to what you do. So the things we're going to talk about, you should be able to do within your Google Docs as well. So we'll be using the newer versions of Microsoft Office, and I understand too, from what Travis was saying, is that a lot of you guys don't have like Adobe Pro software. Is that correct? Does anybody use any kind of other products that we want to kind of give a shout out for? Some of you I can do examples of that I've known that we use, that you guys use to distribute or create content electronically. InDesign?
Yeah, InDesign.
Publisher?
Publisher.
Anything else? Good. Okay, cool. The great thing about that is that because everybody kind of learned how to, these kind of programs, we're all kind of developed on the same kind of structural, well, I want to be able to use this program and then go to this one. This one's cheaper, it has the same features, so we'll buy this one. I can still do right click to do this on both programs. Okay, cool. So a lot of the principles will wrap around. So for Microsoft Word, we'll talk and Word programs, styles and headers, hyperlinks, images with alternate text, and bullets and lists, and take a lot of the stuff we kind of heard a little bit ago. It's because it all transfers over from all the way to the web design, the coding for the backbone of a web page. You want to design it the same way. The screen reader software, in particular, uses the same thing. It uses the heading structure, it uses the list, it uses the alternate text for images. For Excel, it's a little more complicated. How many guys actually do, Clay asked before, does anybody here actually deal with like hardcore data tables like Excel and Google has spreadsheets too? Anybody deal with those kinds of things? Big old tables? Okay, a couple nods, a couple hand raises, cool. So there's ways to label the charts and column headings and row headings. This is where we're going to lose a little bit of transfer from Excel to Google, but the principles should be there, so you should be able to find them. And I have my email address on there. If you guys can contact me, I can get on Google Docs and walk you through something too if you have a problem. Hyperlinks within Excel. Try not to do them because it's not a word processing program, it's a database program, so don't do it. Images, same thing. Don't put images in an Excel spreadsheet because it's not a word program. But anyway, if you have to, we'll show you how to do it. PowerPoint, same way. Use some of those design layouts. I know Google Docs has got a kind of a slideshow. What's it called, actually? Slides. Oh, they got good original on that. Google Slides, Google Docs, Google Spreadsheet and stuff. Google Forms. So using outlines and notes and using older features like word art and fonts, specifically we'll touch on. And then where the Adobe PDF documents, PDF documents have been around for a while, And one of the biggest things, the best things about PDF documents is that no matter where you read them, what you read them on, they're going to appear the exact same way. Everything's going to load and feature, and the font's always going to be the same and whatnot. With open documents like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, it can render using predetermined styles from that person's choice or layout. So when you upload a document, it may actually have a really different font and things like that for those upload materials. But WPDF loads exactly how you have it go. So there's no choice of changing it. That also can make it harder to read. And hard to fix for accessibility. So we're going to learn how to kind of go and check through to see if it's tagged correctly, running through that accessibility check, looking through tables and table headings, and then some specific errors like language and document tree stuff. This is kind of going to be glossed over a little bit. Because one of the things I want to do is I want to definitely get to more exact questions from you guys. So we're going to go through some of the backbone stuff that the principles are going to apply, and then I want to get some questions from you guys too. So, for Microsoft Word, using styles and headers, hyperlinks, images, alternate text, and bullets, and tables and labels themselves. So, when you're using styles and headings, there's a ribbon across the top of Microsoft Word. I think there's something kind of similar to kind of get a general style and especially the heading structure for Google Docs. When you bring open, and we actually did this as part of a presentation, so people can actually follow along. We actually sent out sample Word documents, so we'll see some text that's still there. Using the styles and formatting kind of toolbar across the top, you can actually highlight text and then have it set to a specific style. And that's a little kind of graphical user interface. I'm going to use the term GUI because that's what it actually, that's the cool acronym, and it sounds fun to say it too. The GUI for modify style allows you to actually change it from a heading 1, heading 2, or whatever, and then you can change what it looks like. We mentioned before with the headings for web pages and other electronic documents that you love your headings to look big, bold, underlined, things like that. Sometimes adding that text decoration will actually just detract from the document. Sometimes it'll add to help it separate out. So be kind of a good judge, and this is where the usability versus accessibility kind of comes in. It has to be labeled in the correct order, but it may look fantastically nice to you, but the other person may not be able to read it so well. And be especially careful with using colors and color contrast for that. But you can actually modify the look of everything, and then when you click modify, it will actually change that heading structure in the document itself, and then it'll basically add a header tag to the behind the scenes, kind of the backbone of what you're doing there. And the screen reader will pick up on that. Hyperlinks with most Microsoft products, and I think Google Docs is the same way too. If you type a link out straight and then just hit like space after that, it'll create a link. If you type www and don't put the http : / it usually make a link too. It's really smart that way. Computers, it's the way of the future. So when you have a link that you want to make sure that you actually do this part. Now this may seem kind of redundant, but when you create a link like this, and you create a link in the correct way, it will be tagged as a link. Okay? If you choose the link text, I heard before, at the end of the presentation before that, when you try to push on a piece of paper, and it's printed out, the link doesn't work, make sure that the links are going to be annotated correctly, and in a way that they stand out. Underline it a different color. Sometimes it might produce well, but Jen mentioned too, if you grayscale it, it might not come out too great. So keep that in mind when you're creating links. You want to have, you want to go ahead and use the either the text link by itself, the full thing, and if you're going to be doing one of those things where you send something home to print out, use that second one, the big long list. Use the link. Don't put a word there, it obviously has a link. It's not going to make much sense because you can't click on the paper. So keep that in mind, and also keep in mind that your links may be really long and have huge file names. I don't know, do you guys use database links, things like that, that have all those numbers and all that stuff, and a lot of your links? I don't know how the nitty-gritty of how these forms and things like that are referenced from your website, but a lot of times they'll store them in a database and they'll get referenced. Kind of like when you see who's ever copy-pasted a Google link address. All that huge, gigantic stuff. It doesn't mean anything. You can create text that actually gets you to go there, but
can I ask something?
sure.
I wanted to ask, that question of whether to have that long URL, in a document or whether not to have it. It's kind of a vague, it's not black and white. So I wanted to ask Clay what that's like for him when he reads a document that has a link text this long and see what his opinion is.
Well, that's a short one, but the big.
A lot of these, whenever you get to them, if I'm reading a document in the middle of it, it's got a link, I will skip over it unless I really want to know what it is. But there, from what I remember, Matt, isn't there a way that you can have the link text show up, but then again have it say linked to, in the alternative text for the link, you can have it say what the actual link is, but actually have the displayed URL on the screen.
Yeah, there's a way to do that with a comment in Word, and I'm not sure exactly how they do that in Google Docs, but
Right.
it's similar as if you had an image and you have alt text for it, and you have the tag title on it. It's when you hover over an image, another little thing pops up. Okay, it doesn't always do it in every browser, but if you put a title there, a title tag, it actually will pop up in every browser. Funny thing. So it will, I know the web pages will read the alt text like that for an image. For a link, if I've got a big long link and it's not in a text box like that, I will go ahead and put a title on it just in case.
Right.
Just to make sure that there's something that's read and short and succinct that tells you where to go. And you have a gigantic link like that.
Exactly. Yeah, but some of those links can get really long. And a lot of times I'll just skip it. But if it just says link form or link site or site link or whatever, then that's nice to have a shorter.
What I learned from that is that they know how to skip through things. He can work around a lot, so what's in theory may not be that much of a problem for him. And there's a question that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Google Docs does not have the alternate text for links, it just has a place for links. Would it be better to use a shortened URL rather than
Yes.
the originally generated?
Yes, it would. If there's a way to do that, a lot of times you don't have a web developer that has access to a link to be able to do that, but if you could shorten it, yeah, using Bitly or whatever, some of the ones that you can use, do that. That would be the better way to go. Because even though the screen reader would read link bit.ly.com/whatever, you can that's a lot shorter to listen to than what that gigantic link. So it's one step that's a little bit better for usability purposes than having it. And a lot of times you're not going to be able to get it. Jerry mentioned, there's not one that's 100% right. It's the fact that you're making the effort to get it done and that you're available to answer questions and things like that create a good usability kind of circle.
But if there's only one link in the entire document, it might not be worth the effort. You know, it's just one.
Yeah, bottom line is they're not as bothered by it as I am.
Yeah. All right. Alternate text, usually you just kind of right click on the image and it brings up a little border around it, and then it'll have some options. I'm not sure what the list of options is for Google Docs, but I know there's one way you can add alternate text or add text to that. In Word, it's format picture. It used to be size and position, now it's format picture. They like to make choices hard for us. And there's a description tag. Normally when it comes up, you see there's a title text box in the GUI that comes up. I love using that word. And then there's a description thing. The title actually won't get read out loud. It's the description tag that you want to actually put here. And you want to put something that's important, so you don't put a picture of Great Horned Owl or a Great Horned Owl image, because they know it's an image. It gets tagged and it gets read out loud.
Or you put a no alt tag because it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. If it doesn't, like let's say you have a logo in the corner of your pamphlet or brochure that you're designing, and that logo doesn't really matter. The content of the document does not need that logo to be read out loud. Put an alt image, alt attribute in there, and it won't even be read, and it will be put to the background.
Interrupt again, I'm sorry. I wanted in the perfect world for us to be able to create an image and give it an alt tag, and that would stay with that image for the rest of eternity. Because that seemed like such a great thing, and everybody I've asked about that said no, it wouldn't really be, because you might not have the same descriptive text, you might not want that, and so anyway, that day has not come, but I bet it will. Because I saw some people nod and say, yeah, do do it once and not have to do it over and over.
That'd be nice. And you guys, I don't know, if it comes up, we mentioned a little bit before, it does depend on the context of that alt tag. So if you're trying to present a document that has art in it, and you need to have descriptive phrases in there, you need to have them in there. But if it doesn't need to have it's just a picture of a person, you just tell them who it is. So it's a usability, you kind of have to create a balance point. And you get that from feedback from people.
And I did get some feedback. We had one of our web testers, John Knote, has a wife who teaches elementary school, and she said, I teach art in a group of 5th graders, and that kid wants to know everything that the kid next to him knows. And so he's going to feel left out if I don't describe it really graphic.
Okay, bullets and lists. Use the functionality, use the GUI that's there. Don't use the little thing, don't tab to make a bulleted list. Use the actual structure that's there to create bulleted lists, ordered lists, and unordered lists. That way the correct tagging is applied to it to be able to have it read aloud as it is a list and not just a bunch of tabbed. Because if you tab in and create the look of an ordered list without actually putting the bullets there, the screen reader will just read like a paragraph. That's pretty much what it is.
So you're on that. People who position text by spacing.
Yeah.
Is that going to cause a problem for display?
Yes. Well, it will not cause a. I'm going to make a judgment call here, but it won't cause a problem because it won't read them anything different. If you indent text, it doesn't say indent text, does it?
Oh, it doesn't say space.
Well, because there's no spaces. Now, if you hit space, then it would. It'll say blank space.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Indented text doesn't really do anything. It's still a paragraph.
Right.
Does everybody get what he's saying? Okay, so if you've never seen somebody use a word editor that's probably not using one very often, they don't understand what the indent tools do, so they want their text to line up, so they physically take the keyboard and mash it until it lines up each. So what they're saying is that you come back and it's going to do just like that PDF earlier. It's going to go space, and it's going to read the line. And the next line is going to go space, and read the line. So that's what he's asking, is you need to use the tools to indent text, don't space bar stuff, to make it line up, because generally it's not going to line up anyways, especially if you're using fonts.
One thing I have in the office is we have someone who loves to have 3 or 4 lines on a page, and then they press the return key until they get to the new page for the next. And so you have all of these blank lines instead of just putting in a page break. So it's kind of like that, of having to go down every single blank line, which, you know, whatever. I know it's going to happen. So editing when you've used spaces is a real pain versus using tabs or using the style to indent the paragraph over.
Do you have a question? Well, in the new website that we're going to have, and it could be user error on my part in our current program of SharePoint, but when we press tab for indenting, like in a paragraph of SharePoint, it just skips to another section.
Okay, so when you're in a web design tool like SharePoint or the CMS we have now, tab, because the web browser understands tabs differently than word processors understand tabs. A tab in a word processor tabs the text over. And a word in a browser, it sees tabs as going to clickable elements.
It's going to go to the next clickable element, paragraph tag, and whatever.
So in that case, your only choice there is to use the toolbar to indent stuff over. You can't, you don't space it obviously, but you just have to use the toolbar to justify or indent stuff.
That was another good thing too. So you guys, are you the only one that uses the SharePoint stuff, or is other people in here use that too? Okay, what are you guys going to be using next?
It's called it's your standard content.
Okay. I've used SharePoint before. In fact, our ATAC pages used to be built off of SharePoint, so a little bit familiar. But yeah, when you're designing in SharePoint, it designs it almost like it's a hybrid of a word processor and a web page too. So it kind of gives you a little bit of good, best of both worlds, and in that example, it's kind of a bad example because it would do something you didn't intend it for it to do. But it will go to the next readable element, so list element to list element, paragraph to paragraph, unless you default a tab order, which I think we can talk about a little bit. For tables and labeling cells, this is going to be really specific to Word and things, but it alludes to what Clay was talking about before as far as, and this is actually a pretty complicated process, but once you get it down, you'll do it kind of automatically at the time. And I don't know if this transfers directly over to Google Docs, so we'll need to probably look into that and come up with specific questions on that. I'll go over the basics of what we got here. You can insert the insert table, and you want to use the functionality of whatever the GUI is to insert a table. We talked about it just a minute ago. Don't space over or tab over to create a look of the table, because it won't be set up like a table. Columns won't be announced, rows won't be announced. It'll look nice, but it won't function as a table. One of the things that we want to stay away from is using tables for any kind of layout, if possible, because it'll try to read rows and columns, and it'll confuse people that are using any kind of screen reader technology to be able to navigate through that section of content. Try to use paragraphs, try to use the styles and the objects that you've got to be able to work with on the project, and not substitute one in for the other. But you can label those cells by going into the tool menu and actually selecting. There's a header row, and make sure the header row is labeled as such. First column and so forth. There's a whole bunch of features there. Last column, things like that, to get so that you can it'll actually start listing those things together, like we did with the calendar. It'll actually start reading them in named groups or in sections like that. Keep the tables simple as possible, if you can. And when you have tables that skip over to the next line, you want to make sure that that heading structure gets read aloud again. If the table straddles 2 pages, the heading structure is still at the top of the previous page. It doesn't have anything to connect to when it reads the column out loud to you on the second page, unless you click this little button where it says repeat as header row on top of each page. So it'll have another reference point to be able to go by. Otherwise, whatever the top row of data that's there, it'll use that as the reference to read out loud, which is not going to work out. You can also insert captions into tables to help people navigate. It's kind of like putting a header tag on a table to help people navigate titles of tables if there's a lot of them in the document. And let's see here. Unfortunately, though, a lot of times that the way that particular program, JAWS, uses a word, it might not actually communicate to the location of where the header rows are, and there's some tricks to be able to do that, which you guys can reference here. We're not going to go through that because it would take too much time. Excel, sorry.
I have a question.
Sure.
So a lot of the websites, there's a table we use for like stack lists. Is that not a good idea, just so we can have like the name, the email, the phone number?
That's fine. That's a data table. It creates a data table. But if you have, let's say you open up your Google document and you know you want to have a logo over here and a big header logo with Richland 2, the greatest district in the state, and then you want to have like a byline and then a graphic, but you want them to be arranged correctly. So you're like, oh, okay, well that's a 3-cell by 5-cell table. Don't do that. Use the graphics interface to be able to position those things behind the text. If you put it behind the text, what's in the background? So a screen reader will go, no, we don't need to know about this. This logo with a cool banner line that's zipping across the page looks fantastic, but somebody that can't see it doesn't really matter. So it'll skip over that and go straight to the good stuff in the content. Try to stay away from using tables to lay stuff out like that. Now forms, on the other hand, are kind of a little bit different. A lot of people use forms, not tables, to lay out forms. It's a habit everybody has, and it can work in your advantage if you label the headers and rows correctly, or your rows and columns correctly. It can work in your disadvantage too. So, let's see here. Word and Excel. Sorry.
Can I go backwards to something else and point something out? I just found that so exciting.
Awesome.
Okay, so I put it in our notes page, and what I did was I got an image of a Google icon and put it in there, and then you click on that image. Really?
Show me.
Okay. So then you click on the image, and when you do that, you go to Format, and then you drop down all the way down to the bottom, and you do alt text, and you type it in. So I typed in the alt text there as Google icon, and you don't see it, we don't see it, but people can read it. And then I put the steps, and then I did the pop-up. It's so exciting. So Google is doing everything Word's doing right now, just so you know.
Crowd goes wild. I should have run back there and went down. That's awesome. It's pretty much the same graphic user interface that Word's got, too. I'm a fat cat, as I see it. All right, so a couple of things that you need to do. If you're going to create a document that's got a chart in it, there's actually a way that with Excel, and I'm thinking that it works with, it might work with Google Docs too, especially if they're in the same drive, they can reference, is that when you create a chart and you have a display in a Word document, a Google document, that chart has data backgrounded to it. So what you have is it kind of carries it over. Instead of just doing an image of the chart, do the actual export of the whole thing. And what happens is, if for some reason it's a really complicated chart, my one is not really that complicated. It's only got like three little bars, and it's only got a couple things on the X and Y axis. But it was a really complicated chart. Or let's say you had like tracking trends for something, and there was 15 different things, and there's lines all over the place and whatever. If you want to be able to convey that information, that chart needs to be included in its entirety, and part of that is having the background where they can click on the chart and actually will open up an Excel spreadsheet and have all the information so they can navigate the Excel spreadsheet to go, the slash line with the yellow triangles on it is this trend, and you can navigate through that stuff. So having charts, when you embed a chart in a document like that, you need to make sure you have the background that's kind of there. And you need to use the tools that are in whatever program you're doing to create those charts. Don't just copy paste a picture of the chart and bring it over. Create the chart within the document, and it'll open up a little Excel window, and you can design it with tables and columns and rows and all sorts of magic. And it'll create a much cleaner reference point for it. It'll make your file a little bigger, but it'll make it really easy and much more accessible. So you basically create a data sheet within Word, and then it'll create a chart and visually show it within the Word, but it'll have that Excel background to it, which is a great way to go. I don't know if some of you guys are, she did her due diligence, she got the image one, she gets the extra credit check. I don't know if you guys want to start creating charts in your Google Docs while we're talking, but you're welcome to try. And I'm going to go ahead and when I'm done with this presentation, when I get back to the office, I'm actually going to open up stuff, and I'm going to, because we obviously need, with all the schools that are kind of getting hit or targeted, are getting referenced by these potentially erroneous lawsuits, I'm sure, alleged problems, that we're going to need help doing Google Docs stuff. So we're going to get some Google Docs stuff up on our website too. I vow to do that. You heard me and since then.
Well, actually, I lost my microphone. Someone stole it.
Yeah, because I did. No one was
We're going to
fitting
have
that.
a larger training, we hope here in Richmond too, in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people, and we're going to go through a lot of this again. So if you would like to be on our list, or bring me a card of your information, I'll put you on it right away. I also may get a list from Travis that we can add you to we have a listserv with our committee that sends out information. Trust me, you won't get too much.
You guys know what listservs are? It's some kind of old school. It's like mail lists.
Well, we use MailChimp to do it, so whatever.
Yeah, that's right. But we use that to communicate all of our meetings with AskIt and all of the, so you can pose questions and things like that, and we're pretty good at responding. We've got a really good pool of folks to answer those things for you. So we went through the charts. For Excel, because the data program, the Word folks that raise their hands, we're going to kind of go through that a little bit. We're creating and labeling, label those row and column headings. The hyperlinks, don't do it. And images, don't do that either. But if you have to, there's ways to do it. And it's very similar to the way you did it before. When you're naming different data ranges, things like that within Excel, you want to make sure that you actually label those row headers and the column headers so that it's kind of read out loud. a lot of this stuff is going to be used in the graphical user interface for Excel, but there should be ways to functionally label headers and columns, header rows and columns in the spreadsheets with the data. You want to make sure you define those names in a succinct way, and don't put things that won't be understood. Think about what would happen if you labeled a TV guide incorrectly, that you wouldn't be able to understand any of those things. The whole row is on it. The whole row is not usable. The whole column is not usable. So wait, it's row and column, sorry. So think about those things when you're designing the kind of data tables, that you include those. And if they're really big tables, make sure you find a way to include that header row again on the next page. Let's see here. For hyperlinks, it's kind of the same way, unfortunately. Just type the link inside there, and you can actually also highlight the text that comes up and select hyperlink on that to create a link or a link. A lot of times the icon, little infinity symbol thing kind of is there as well. And create a link within one cell, and it may actually extend out to another cell. So, but if you can, try not to put links into Excel spreadsheets, because it's supposed to be data bound and not really a bunch of information for links to go out. So for alternate text images, if you've got an image in a cell, you can do the same thing. You click on it, a little border will come up. You can go to size and properties, or whatever the functionality that she said. I'm sure it's probably the same way within anywhere you have an image to add alternate text. And you want to make sure this is the same way. You're going to have a descriptive kind of block to be able to enter that alternate text, and make sure that alternate text is needed. If it's there for decoration on your spreadsheet, I don't know why you want to decorate a spreadsheet. But if you need decoration, people do, you betcha. If it's relevant information, if it's relevant to the content, you need to go ahead and make sure you've got text there. Now, kind of an alternative to that, if you do charts will typically have a title labeled to them, and it will be referenced from a specific point of data, or specific table. A lot of times it'll take the file name, it'll take the workbook sheet name, sometimes as what it does to reference the title of the chart. If you have a picture of something and then underneath it you have descriptive text, that's a great time. You don't have to use alt text, because as Jen alluded to before, they'll just hear the alternate text read out loud and then the real text read out loud underneath it. So you don't need to have it duplicated either. So a lot of this comes down to kind of usability. It comes down to the fact that you don't need to. I'm cutting in and out of this one too.
So if you have a picture and you have text wrapped around it, and your descriptive of the picture is below it, then how are they going to catch? Will they catch the text with the picture somehow? Does it link together, or does it all wrap?
It depends on how the picture is set up. If it's set to wrap with the text, but the problem with most images is that, I guess you can get the text to appear underneath the image, but you have to format it. So you've got a paragraph in a big block, and then you have an image that's a block inside the paragraph, and then you have text that's underneath that. So a lot of times it'll read it out of order too. It might read the image first, because in the structure of, if you're doing it by a web page, okay, and you want the paragraph, and you want the image to be embedded in the paragraph and not ever stray or float up above it or whatever, you'll make a paragraph tag, a little greater than, less than, symbol, a P, and then the other one, close it out. And then you have an image tag inside that before the text even starts with the content. It's 99% of the web programmers will do that, because you want to make sure your image gets read first. Well, that's what happens is the screen reader is going down, there's a paragraph, oh, we have a paragraph here, it's an element, cool. And then the next thing is an image, so it'll read the image in the alt text, and then it'll read the sentence, the paragraph itself, the content of it. So it may read it out of order, too. If you're going to have text underneath the picture, I'm trying to think how to notate that. If you're going to have text underneath the picture, I would do it as two separate things. There's ways, obviously, to wrap a picture inside of a paragraph and also have text underneath the paragraph. I'm not sure how Google does that top of my head. I don't typically do that, but if you're going to have text underneath it, make sure that's the same thing as the alternate text. Do you guys know how to do that, to wrap a picture around a paragraph, right? To like embed it in there? Is there a functionality within Google Docs that allows you to then add a caption underneath the image?
Would caption to be viewable by someone who has sight?
Yes,
Okay.
I think that's what she's saying, is that correct?
Yeah.
We got a winner,
If
yes.
you redone it, put in the alternate text.
Right.
Correct.
So when I do when you put an image into Sheets, you don't just copy and paste it into Sheets. You can paste it into a document, you can paste it into slides, and then you can do the alternate text once you click on the image, then you go to format, you go to alternate text, you type it in, and that is not viewable to someone with sight.
Okay.
It's readable, right?
Right.
But then when you put it into Sheets, you can't just paste it in. Then you have to insert the image. And when you do that, on the right corner, and I'll put this in our document, but in the right corner, there's a drop down that says several things. And one is assigned script, and one is alt text. Now, alt text is not viewable
Correct.
to people. So I would think that there would be, I don't know what assigned script is, but if you had text under it that said, this is a beautiful Google icon, and then you had alt text that said, beautiful Google icon, then it's going to be read twice
Correct.
to someone who's just listening.
Right.
But I don't know what assigned script is, so maybe
Well,
that does it.
one of the things you can do too, let's say you have an image and it's inside the paragraph, you can allude to the image. The image at right displays blah, and that counts as alt text. That's good enough. Because then you put a non-alt text in the image, and then it describes the image. They have to read through the content, but so did I, and I'm excited because I had to read through it to find out what the image is about. Yes?
In the new website, when you insert an image, there's an option to put a title,
Yes.
and the title shows up directly above the image or the table.
Okay.
So I guess it reads it, and then it'll read also the alternate text.
It'll read, so the title shows up in the actual, on the webpage, it displays to visual users.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That sounds like it's a scripting thing, not so much a accessibility thing. To where your script is set to display title information above the picture, centered up, and you were left aligned, or whatever it is.
That allows you to have a readable title and alternate text, right?
Correct.
So you can
Correct.
put more description in there.
From what I understand, and I actually asked Clay this earlier, he's not done enough research into various different ways to know, but I have a lot of people that want things to pop up when their picture is hovered over, at least in desktop computers, and the title is the only way to do that for, if you add the title tag to an image, it's the only way to do that for every browser that's out there. If you use alt text, sometimes it'll come up and it won't in others. But it sounds like from the functionality that you got to insert the title, you wouldn't need to put alternate text in there, but it would read, I would believe it actually reads alternate text first, and if there's not alternate text there, it'll read the title, and then after that, it'll just read whatever's around the image.
But wouldn't you have to write the title so that a person who couldn't see it would understand, and it would be awkward for the person who could see it, because then you're going to have to say, this image shows, or the image below shows this thing. So
That'd be in the text of the paragraph that it's in though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then that would be fine to say the image at right or whatever, because then they know, if they navigate to it, they know that it's in that paragraph somewhere so they can navigate around a little bit with arrow keys and find there's an image somewhere in there. As far as sighted users having to reference the image at right or the image above or whatever, that's just stuff, that's what's going to happen either way. If it has a title, if it has the alternate text displayed from the title attribute of the image above the image, then that's something that your scripting is kind of, sounds like something your scripting is doing for your web pages, then an automatic thing that comes up every time. I'm thinking, just because I don't see that I haven't seen like from start to finish about how that gets rendered. Those are some good examples, those are good questions, and if we can afterwards follow up, and even after the training too, I'd be glad to help you guys follow up with some of that kind of stuff too, to get you some actions, because one person's having a question, that means other people are having questions too. Anybody have any other questions before we kind of go through the PowerPoint stuff? I'm sure you'll be thinking of them. Jot them down, write them down. Pieces of paper. I know it's an ancient, but you can still do it. For PowerPoint, we want to encourage the use of pre-designed slide layouts, use the outlines and notes panels, and talk about word art and fonts. Well, styles. Every version of PowerPoint has got this style bar kind of across the top. These templates will ensure your files are actually correctly structured and that our lists and stuff are in place. Up at the top, there's that big new slide that gives you that nice little drop down of all these kind of layouts. And interesting to note about this user interface there, that title slide, title and content, section header, or whatever. Since nobody's blind here, I can point to these. That is automatically header 1, or a title. It's automatically categorized. So anything you type into that, hopefully I'm not type into that is automatically going to be tagged as a header 1 or a title or whatever. It'll automatically create the structure. So if you've got nested stuff side by side, it'll automatically do it in order from top to bottom, left to right. Unless I guess you have language set to like Japanese or something that's backwards. But what? You never know. A kid might need to read Japanese. They teach Japanese in school. Gosh. So that's one of the cool things about PowerPoint is that it automatically does that for you. And when you transfer PowerPoint to say a PDF format or export it in some way, those headers are already there. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a heads up. Whereas when you open up a blank Word document, your headers and all that structure is not there at all. So PowerPoint. We've got these great things. If anybody's given PowerPoint presentations or slide presentations, I'm really excited. PowerPoint. Doesn't work out. So these outline help the printer organize the material, but it also helps you guys afterwards when it's exported to, say, a PDF. It can be referenced by those outline kind of form to kind of go through the files itself. Now, that one actually does it by slide. So each one of the slides, and then I remember before when I said, whatever you put at the top automatically is a header. When you do the slide format, the outline format, this is your header 1, this is your nested list. It automatically tags these things in there. So when you open up your outline format for PowerPoint, this is automatically a header 1, and then listed on a number of your lists. It's already tagged that way to begin with. A laser pointer, or a giant stick or something. Yeah. So the outline and notes panels are actually really important to include. So when the outline panels is going to happen no matter what. It's when you type content into those slides, it's going to generate part of the outline. The notes panels is underneath. And this is where you would kind of put a reminder like, oh, get somebody ready to do the next presentation with their slides up in 3 minutes, or to mention the link or something like that. These are notes that nobody else in the room sees. So I've got them here. It's in my note field. It says no notes, because I didn't type anything in there. But if you type stuff in there, it'll stay with your presentation when you export it. And there's ways to access that those fields when you read it as a PDF. And that's important for people that are using these programs that may need to have them read out loud, like someone that's using JAWS. Word art and font choices. This is a lot of text, and you don't want to read this, but this is a great reference point. I created this presentation to not only be a way to present this information, but also be something that you can use as a guide going back. So word art in the older versions, you want to try to stay away from. It's really fancy, it makes it look great, but a lot of times the content is what's important and not so much how it looks. When you're presenting it, great. I've often made presentations that look great, but when I send them out to someone to use as a reference point, I'll strip all that stuff out, because that's not needed. The cool fades and all that kind of stuff doesn't get absorbed by the audience when they're reading it at their desktop, because they were too sick to go to that presentation or whatever, because my show was sold out or whatever. So you have to remember that when things are being presented through a slide format like this, that they're not going to be interpreted the same way as when you were here listening to you talk. So you're going to miss out on all this cool banter. None of it's listed. That's where I put things in the notes, banter about cool sold-out shows and stuff like that. Background images for PowerPoints. Remember that images are used to convey content, and if it's pretty, that's great, but the background images that you assign to PowerPoint are actually automatically going to be tagged as background images, and they won't be read aloud by a screen reader. So if you have a graphic there that is needed to be used as some kind of content representative, you need to make sure you bring that out of the background and put it in one of those slide layout formats.
Question about that?
Sure.
So, like for instance, if I were doing a presentation on infographics, and so then wanted it to be, so obviously the infographic itself is a visual that has information and things. What, if within a slide, I wanted to convey that infographic?
Give me an example of what the infographic might have on it. A simple
An
one.
example could be like Chromebook damage data. So maybe I have graphs and some information of our devices, the type of work orders that have been done, the grade levels, and I have sort of pie charts, those sorts of things, but then obviously numbers and maybe even some words that describe how the devices get damaged, get dropped, something gets spilled on.
Okay.
So with that infographic, if I were going to embed that within a slide, what would be as a reference, or what?
There is, it's similar to the way that Word does their create chart. There's a functionality within PowerPoint to create chart and things like that. And that way you can import whatever data you're using to fuel that chart creation or the visual of it to make it, and then you have the GUI to make it appear like whatever you want it to, like you do with Excel. So that way when you email the presentation to somebody and they want to know how that data got put together, and they click on the chart, they should have a backbone of a data chart attached to it. If you just do a picture of the data chart and you have maybe some bullet points to describe what is there, what the chart is representing, that's another way. You're basically creating the extended alt text for that image by using bullet points. Or you can put it in the notes, or something like that. Something that would be more descriptive, because if you think about it too, afterwards that presentation is not going to be very effective unless they have all your descriptive text and read all the details of those individual points. So they're not going to get all the information that they were going to get from your presentation face to face. That's a great place to add notes for the notes panel and things like that. And if you need to, update your slides. If you know your slides are going to be used in a way that is going to be presented and retained and referenced for information later on, add a few more slides or add a Word document or something in as a caveat. Say, hey, this was presented in another format. If you have any questions, get back to me or something like that. Yes, our champion in the back.
Responding to Tyler. Tyler, I think if you created it in your infographic and say Canva, which I just recently realized is amazing for creating, somebody shared it last time.
What's the name of it again?
Then when you, Canva, it's a website that does really beautiful things.
Oh.
But when you download from that, you download it as a PDF, but you also could download it as an image. If you download the image, it's going to be blank to people. So you could create an infographic in slides, and then as you put those component parts in, put that alternate text. But that, I mean, it changes where it is. But if you just bring it as an image, I wonder though, but you couldn't put it in as a PDF. You'd have to put it in as image if you're bringing it into slides from Canva. And so they would lose all of that. Yeah.
And a lot of these habits and these kind of things that we're talking about here are going to be behavior changes. You're going to have to kind of get along, and then if you're going to continue to do things as you did before, and you have people that, I'm not saying you're going to get assaulted and the internet access police is going to storm your door, but the more people with disabilities are involved in your schools, then the more questions are going to come up. And it may be easy to fix one or two questions, but if you've got a lot of them, then it's maybe better to kind of back up and say, okay, well, can we change the standards policy of how we kind of create these documents to use these guidelines to help us create stuff. That way they're good for everybody, including folks with disabilities. And that's kind of some of the things that we, for lack of a better word, preach. Because if you do the due diligence in the beginning, and you get yourself in the habit of doing this stuff, then it becomes second nature to you, and you don't worry about it later on. But those are some great examples of some of you got programs for that you guys can use. Explore these, and she was, I saw her, she kind of wrote, she was writing down kind of notes on 1, 2, 3, 4 on the steps to do these kind of things. I would encourage you guys as a district now to get that stuff set up so that you have a reference point to kind of go back to. That way everybody's using the same reference point, and if you need to, change it. Because technology is going to change. People are going to get questions. And be like, well, I'm using this software, this stuff, and it's going to be different for everybody. So use those things that get it right for as many people as you can, and then be flexible about questions you kind of get. And these are some great questions too, because these are a lot of things that are specific to what you guys have got. Okay. I'm not PowerPoint, if you don't mind, geez, whatever. So we finished up kind of with PowerPoint, stuff like that. The great thing about PowerPoint is that it does do a lot of that heading and a lot of that backbone stuff for you. So if you can design a PowerPoint, go for it. I have yet to see whether the slideshows, the Google Slides, does similar kind of things, but I'm going to check up on that. I'm going to make sure that we add Google stuff to this because we do deal with a lot of school districts that are coming up with questions, and we need to give you guys some help. For PDF documents, we need to be able to basically, because I know you guys don't use Adobe Pro, and don't have access to it all the time, all of you don't do it, we're going to kind of go through this a little bit. We're going to display and talk about what it means to create a tagged document, and then how to run what's called an accessibility check. There are other readers that read PDF documents, and you can read them in your browser, something like that. You won't have the functionality to do this, but some of the things and some of the tools like we showed you with Wave, and just getting into the habit of getting these things, the headers and the proper labeling of lists and things like that, you'll start to pick up on and you'll catch yourself. You'll be like, oh, I shouldn't have tapped it over, let me go back and change that, or this is a table, it needs to be reformatted in another way. And a lot of times too, I don't know how often you guys have to like put something out right away. Put it out right away, get the information to the most people you can, and then go back and fix it, and then take the time to get it right. Because you'll get less questions that way in the long run. But be prepared to answer questions and fix it if you need to. So, what I mean by a tagged document, that means all the stuff is tagged correctly. So paragraphs are paragraphs, list items are list items, and so on and so forth. When you don't do it to begin with in Word or PowerPoint or Excel or Google Docs or whatever, that stuff's not going to be there. PDF doesn't know to reference that. Okay? Just like PDF didn't know to reference it when you had it scanned from a picture, it doesn't know where the tags go. It's going to take a guess if you enable some character recognition, like Clay was talking about. But sometimes it gets that really wrong, especially when you have really cool fonts and things like that. So accessible PDFs are referred to usually as ones that are tagged. When you scan an image, a picture, or something like that, and use that, unfortunately, a lot of times when you use InDesign, it doesn't create a tagged PDF. Just the way InDesign likes to screw with all of us. So, this Publisher, it's been a while since I used Publisher. When you export, it should have an option when you export to PDF, no matter what you create PDF with, at least in the Adobe Program Suite, to have a checkbox to say enable accessibility, or, and we'll talk about that in a second, I'll show you what the box looks like, but when you create those documents from it and you export to a PDF final product, it should have some options within that to be able to create that. Go ahead.
Those resources that I had in my PowerPoint, Microsoft has a bunch of tutorials on their website about how to use all their products.
Does Google Docs?
And I don't know, but that's my list of research.
Yes. They're good forums. So Google Docs has really good forums on all this stuff too. So I want to actually probably go there to create my cool document and paraphrase from them and look like a rock star afterwards. So I believe so. I'll say leaning towards yes with using the Magic 8-Ball formula. So we have these tags that are going to have that hidden structural, textual representation of all the content, and they'll have no visible effect often on the actual PDF document itself, but they create that backbone for everybody to be able to read using technology. So the file must be accessible beforehand. To create a tag document, when you create those through Office or any other program, you will actually be not correctly tagged. If you don't create it that way, if you scan it and print it, it's not going to have any kind of tags on it associated to it at all. So for instance, and this is the one for Word, when you export on your save as file type, it's got Word document, docx. If you go up to PDF and select PDF, these are the options that you're going to have. And this is the one you want to make sure that you check. And just look for the word accessibility. Because for 508, 504, some of the things that we talked about, it should have a checkbox or something there that references the fact that we want to make sure we transfer all those structure tags, bookmarks, all those annotated note marks and everything like that that you've got, that you put that hard work into when you created your Word document. We want to transfer all that stuff over. So when you hit OK, it'll actually make sure that when you export that file, it'll produce a PDF that has all that stuff in it. There's a tool that within Adobe Pro that you can use to actually check accessibility. Because you guys don't use a lot of Adobe Pro, we're going to kind of breeze through it, but I'll let you know it's very similar to the programs and the tools that Janet outlined too.
We actually, my department of communications has Acrobat Pro.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you don't have to do
What
that.
version do you know? What version? Is it X? That's the newest version. Well, one of the things that I've seen done in state agencies is what they'll do is they'll purchase one license and it's on a network. So if you need to check it, you can upload it, you can log into that computer, check it, and then log out. Be done. That's kind of a way to cheat about a little bit. Don't tell them I told you that. They'll be okay.
We don't know that we have the cloud.
Yeah, I think they're using the OPC probably.
If it's got it included in the program suite, it might actually work.
Yeah, we have.
So, I mean, I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit more quickly because I would like to get to a couple of questions. I know Jen has some remarks to kind of close out stuff too. Could you look at the email?
Well, I have about 2 slides there.
It was fine. So, this actually enables you to do checks. And the great thing about this is we saw before from Wave, it tells you where your problems are. Well, this does the same thing. Not only it tells you if there was problems or no problems, that's their yes, and that's their no problems, and it's a really complicated way of saying no problems. They're tech people, they like to, blab. So it'll generate this little accessibility report window off to the side, and actually it'll show you what file you're accessing. And it'll tell you what those errors are and how to fix them. So these are some of the common issues and corrections that you have. Greatly, this is a long way of describing certain things that are wrong with your document. Making sure you have table headings or tables, it'll tell you when you don't have them. It's pretty obvious. Elements not contained in the document structure tree. We'll talk about that in a second. Tab order may be consistent with the structural order. That means that you've got images, that means you most likely laid something out with the table that shouldn't be laid out with the table, or you've got images that are positioned a little bit higher than the top of that paragraph, so read the image first, and the paragraph when it really should be the other way around, things like that. Images without alternate text, it's something that plagues us all. And all the text on this page lacks a lagging specification. That's actually a really easy fix too. So you can actually, there's a little touch-up reading word button that's on the side of that little interface there. After you run your check, it'll bring up this little menu, this little graphic user interface, a little GUI here. And that's what you can do to kind of go through it. You'll see your document will have all these big X's kind of cross through stuff, or have highlighted areas with 2s and 3s and 4s and things like that. And that'll tell you the order of where your thing is. And if you actually go, we'll talk about that in just a little bit, about how to reorder those things. It'll outline tables and label it as a table. We saw before here. There's ways you can actually relabel stuff. So let's say you have text that's there and tagged it as text for some reason. Oh, I forgot my header 2 tag, darn it. So, but it's that big bolded text, and it's the way every other header 2 tag is. You can highlight that and go ahead and hit header 2, and it'll apply header 2 tag to it right there. So that way you can fix it, and you have your header tag sections done. But going into PDF to do this, rather than doing it right in the Word document, is way worse. Tables. You want to do this again. Doing this in PDF in Adobe Pro is just a pain. I have to do this. Do it right in the background document. But if you have to, let's say you get a document from somebody else that you don't have access to the original content. It happens to me all the time. These are some ways that you can actually go into the table editor and assign table rows and headers. It'll tag it as TD for a table row and TH if it's a table header. You can actually select those things through the properties and through the GUI to be able to reclassify it, like we reclassified the header tag before. You can reclassify one of these columns or rows into something else. So it'll come up as TH, as table header. And then it'll read it across correctly. So this table would actually be read correctly across. Going through all the data here will be referenced. So as you go through and scroll later on down, Latin name, Luvo Virginianus. Average wingspan in inches, 48.45. So it'll read the rows and the columns together when you have them tagged right. In that table editor, you can make them different colors to make it easier for you to see, things like that, and then show the cell type. It helps you kind of pick out your tables, especially if you have a lot of them in your document. Elements not contained in the document structure tree. It's a lot of issues can generate these, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're inaccessible. It just means that you've got something kind of wrong with the way the PDF is read. You can fix them by adding some tags, and you also end up maybe some inaccessible page content. Links and headers trigger that all the time. It's a link, it's a functional link, it's tagged as a link, it's in a header, big whoop. Sorry PDF, you're gonna have to suck it up and put a link in the header. It just likes to do that. So if you get that generated errors thing, and that's all you get is inaccessible page content, or an accessible link, chances are that's what it is. But you want to go through and check it to make sure. So adding tags to the document, there's in that same GUI, there's a button that says add tags to the document. Now, the problem with that is that it will add tags like it wants to, not the way you want it to. So it may add a paragraph tag somewhere else, or if you had a cool ordered list, or an unordered list, and you put arrows as your list button. Don't do that, by the way. If you put cool arrows, they may not see that as an arrow. They see that as an image, graphic, alternate text, no alternate text. First of all, move those to the background, or first of all, create lists the right way, not with arrows. But when you can actually change that document. So if you have an ordered list there, or a list, you can go ahead and click on those things. But the problem is that add tags to document won't figure that out, because it doesn't know that a little arrow cool thingy means that you wanted a bullet there. So you're going to have to go back and go to the reading order button, the reading order thing, and be able to classify that as a listed item. And you know what? There isn't an option for that. So go back to your Word document, do it right, and come back. So a lot of times you run into these loops. Adding tags to the document. A lot of times InDesign will do this. Doesn't like to create tag documents because it ends up creating a big image, especially if you have giant graphics around text. You need to make sure that the text is tagged as it is and those images are all texted properly. Otherwise, that InDesign thing will not be as fully accessible as it could be. Accessible content or links. A lot of times, see, like after the image, somebody used a return key there, so it'll actually create a little space. That'll be a blank space, but it also takes up time when the person's trying to scroll through that stuff. You can go through and click on that, hit background in the touch-up reading order, and get rid of all that. So you can click on it, it'll highlight, and then hit background, and that way it'll actually move into the background. You will never read it ever. Structure order. This is some things that you need to kind of go through. There's step by step on how to get it back into the structure order here. More common issues and corrections. These are more walkthrough, step by step, so I won't go through them all because it'll be really long. Going through the tab order, there's actually another window off the side that allows you to move things up in the tab order. So let's say you have that image that comes before the paragraph, and you need to make sure that that image is read after the paragraph is. You can actually drag them up and get them in the proper order here. I will give you a hint though, if you ever do this, make sure you save multiple versions. Sometimes when you put an image up in a certain place, it'll jump into another tag and it'll format it kind of oddly. So save often and save under different, like save 1, save 2, save 3, to be able to go back to your stuff. Because that little arrow key is really touchy and it's really small on your screen. So when you're doing that, make sure you're hovering, and when you let go in the right spot. Once you mess up on it a few times and your whole document is ruined and you start over again, you'll realize, I should have saved like Mike told me. I even have the command release your mouse button. See, so it's very sensitive. Structure order, again, you want to make sure that it's read top to bottom, left to right, so you want to go ahead and move those things where they can be read in proper order. When there's a figure or an image and it says that it has no alternate text, you can click on that image and it'll actually have, it'll have the word figure and then it'll have something after it, it'll have no alternate text, or it'll also might have the dreaded file / Great Horned Owl picture JPEG 0066 thing written there. It'll automatically interpret the file name as alternate text unless you're changing it. So you need to make sure that you go into the original documents and change the alternate text, because that file 066 means nothing as an alternate text. whatsoever. So you make sure you do that. And a lot of times you'll see figure. That's the cool thing about Touch of Reading Order. It'll say figure, and it'll have the big old file name sitting right there. So it'll be really obvious when you didn't do it. But you guys are going to do it right, so you will never see that error, so it doesn't matter. Edit alternate text the same way that you would edit alternate text in the Word documents and stuff. Language specifications, that's actually up in the document properties. This is really important, actually. Assistive technologies and conventional users will actually read the text more accurately when the language is defined, and actually will pronounce things correctly as well. And I'm sure there's a bunch of really bad examples, more examples of ways words can be pronounced very incorrectly. And if somebody's trying to interpret them as content, then they're not going to get it. I'm pretty sure we still teach languages in schools, so this is kind of important. And then media players will also show captions correctly. This is a very important part of that. That's actually really easy to do. In your document properties, you can either hit File in the document properties or Control-D, and it'll bring up this little interface here. This is also where you can put under description tag, like tags for people using search engines and stuff like that. To put in here, but on the last one, advanced, down at the bottom, English, and there's a huge list of stuff. Go ahead and select the appropriate language, and then hit OK, and release the mouse button. Proper document properties is, this is where you enter in that information, title, author, subject, keywords. Now, nowadays, the keywords thing used to be really big. That was the way everybody kind of searched for stuff, is to have keywords, and a lot of people have them on top of their web pages and stuff now, too. Most search engines are text-based now, so they won't even look at those stupid keywords. If you want to put them in there, more power to you, but all the search engines will still register them. But Google searches, for instance, as I hear you guys use Google a little bit, they're text-based. So if you have on your website, if you've got a PowerPoint, you've got 4 PowerPoints and a couple Word documents and then a web page that has the same text, and it matches the search text that the user entered, but the PowerPoint has that text 18 times, and the web page has it twice. Guess what comes up in Google search? Your PowerPoint. Another reason to make sure your PowerPoints, if they're being released for content, being saved for reference later on, have their stuff straight, because they're going to reference that on the Google search first, because it has that text mentioned more times than the web page does. You can configure your Google search engine so that if you have one internally that will display things more, but you got to pay bucks for that, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So document properties is a nice way to be able to let people know what is in that document as they're going through. And it's kind of like creating a really long alternate text. I think we'll go with specific questions now. Okay, there's going to be a couple of slides that Janet's going to include in the package, maybe, if she's feeling up to it. We can cheer her on or not.
No, let's do questions.
Okay. So while we're doing questions, so what kind of specifics do you have after all that? We have a lot of great questions during the presentation. What else do you guys have come up? What do you think that would be helpful to go through? Heard a lot from this side of the table and back there. Anything from over here? You guys are really quiet. I saw you all whispering to each other and pointing at me and laughing earlier. She had a great question that I got to answer too. Did anybody have anything that was lingering at all? Don't be afraid to speak up. Why not? Sorry, I'm making you move the camera. I'm sorry. Mike, that's your problem. So anybody at all? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that we add a Google Docs intensive kind of response to this, and make sure we've got stuff that's set up there to answer some of these Google Doc questions. It's good that we're getting examples and questions directly from y'all, because you're the ones that are going to have to interpret this stuff and fix it anyway. So we'd like to be able to make sure that we help as many state agencies as we can. That's what Ask It's really founded on. And if you guys have got questions, that means other people have questions too. So I appreciate it.
Did you say your presentation is online, or we will get a copy?
There's actually a version of this, I believe, that's on the Ask It webpage.
Janet has shared with me all the electronic versions of all this. I will send it to Chuck, and he'll disseminate it out to the rest of you. Is it okay just to give them the link to the Dropbox? Where they can... Yeah, okay. So give you the link to their Dropbox.
Give us a date, add alternate text to all the images.
And that way, when they update stuff, we're able to go back to it.
Thanks.
We have a little time for email, and some of this is common sense, but then again, some of us don't have as much as we should. But part of this is accessible stuff, and part of this is just common sense, but I wish that more people thought about how they do emails and what we are doing. And I'm not going to go into email clients particularly, I'm just going to go into the basics. But, you know, I know you all know better than to have everybody that's ever seen that email before you get to the content of an email. Spend some time cleaning emails up, because nobody wants to hear all that. But one of the main things that people don't think about is what do you put in the subject line? And you need to think, how sortable is that going to be when someone's sorting through email? By date, by subject line, whatever. And so...
Remember, if you include the same subject line in Google, it conversations it. So if you want to separate it, you need to make that. And
I'm sure probably y'all have figured all this out, but so when we do our Ask It emails, we start every single subject line starts with Ask It, because that's going to be in a hierarchy that's easily sortable, and then it's going to say what it is. So what that means is it's probably a good idea to start, it's not a good idea to start emails with reminder, because when I sort mine, I got 8,000 reminders in there on all kinds of updates. Yeah, really. So think about a hierarchy in your title, so that people are, and especially screen reader people, they know exactly what this is going to contain. They don't know what they're supposed to remember. They don't know. And the other one is your. When you start sorting by subject line, think how many yours you see, and they end up at the bottom. So anyway, that's a big pet peeve. So you think about logical keywords, and then I know y'all don't do this, but putting your message in the subject line is really tacky. It's really tacky.
Sometimes it happens when you use the phone email.
Yeah, well, it's still tacky. So, and then in writing, you know, I sort of got onto this earlier, but really try to keep all the extra words out. And this is for everybody. We just need less clutter in our lives, and we don't need to be reading as many words. It's not a doctoral dissertation. And again, all these principles work well for older people, impatient teens, people who are just slow at clicking because maybe they don't have good hand control. So it's a kind of a universal design thing. I've started looking at fonts all over the internet, and people disagree, but I'll tell you what, the majority of the people with visual impairments in those organizations say that the sans serif, where you don't curly Q into each other, those are hard to read for people who have low vision, and if you use a screen enlarger, it makes it even harder to read. So Arial and the sans serif fonts really are the best. Arial gets real high marks, except some idiot in Europe doesn't think so, but generally speaking, Arial's good. And it's not to say you can only use Arial, but it's a good fallback. And I also don't use too many different fonts. I was going to give you a Microsoft. It wasn't done by Microsoft. It was a document of Microsoft Word, and it was ugly. They used all these different fonts in there. That's just not a good idea. I'm sure y'all know this, but I'm telling you anyway. Center text, not a good idea. Fully justifying, the ragged edges are very, very much easier than when you have a lot of space between words. So full justification is really kind of a no-no anymore. Italics are hard for people with low vision. I know that we want to use them, but think carefully before you do. And then we talked about color contrast, but really and truly, the best background color is white. I mean, you can try something else, but it really is white. And then, again, meaningful link text. All caps, we kind of talked about this, but multiples of any character or a lot of dollar signs get you classified as spam. And I noticed that that document from the Department of Ed had all caps and a bunch of exclamation points. It's just not necessary. And our screen reader, one of our web testers is Grace Strother, who uses a screen reader with voice output. And she says all caps just really leads to horrible eye strain for her. And also, it reads sometimes her screen reader, which is not JAWS, assumes that it's a state abbreviation or a province. And so it's just, when you be careful before you use all caps, but we know that we can't avoid all acronyms. We know that. We heard Clay talk about how JAWS kind of knows about all caps, but still, it's tacky. And then think about your attachments. You can have the most clean, sweet, simple email in the world, but then you have an attachment that's, I saw a lot of this on the, well, I see a lot of it, period. They send you a flyer as an attachment, and it's a graphic, or it's an inaccessible PDF. So the principle behind this is think before you send an attachment. Is it really necessary? Because do you have time to make sure it's accessible? So be careful. And David Bundy is another one of our web testers, and what he says is, if you don't tell me what that attachment is, I'm afraid to open it because I can't see it all, and I'm afraid of getting the virus. So explain what the attachment is in your message instead of just having it there, or see attachment. And then Grace talks about the graphic, the pretty little graphic flyer that she can't read. Then Queen's University, the Canadians are really good, I have to say. I don't know, they're ahead of the ball game on a lot of this. They are with assistive technology too, and so they talk about whether they use plain text, rich text, or HTML, and I think you probably all know that. And these are just a few resources. The mass marketing emails, campaigns, they're both pretty accessible, but I know for a fact that MailChimp started out from the very beginning. They were in the same building with the assistive technology program in Atlanta and Georgia Tech, and I've been using MailChimp since it started. They're getting better and better and better about helping everything be accessible, and they read beautifully. So the tools we have now are so much better than back in the day when we had to do everything by hand, so there's just a lot of hope. And you know, we've already found out how ahead of the game Google Docs is. So that's all, unless people have questions. Y'all have been good. We only had one break, and thanks for paying such good attention.
You guys have questions for Dan?
I'm still here too. One of the things that I wanted to point out too about the emails, she mentioned no italics, no caps, things like that. Bold is probably about the best consistent way you can add emphasis to something without going overboard with making it annotated in a visual way. Bold is still very visual. If you keep the rest of your email not bold and not all caps, then it will stand out. So just like a link will too. So think simple when that kind of stuff comes up, and you'll end up having your information conveyed in a much more friendly way. And accessible and usable. Sorry. Oh, and one more thing too. Is anybody in here, just as a general survey, is anybody here colorblind? Or knows somebody that's colorblind? Okay. Okay. Just frightening statistic there. 1 in 5 men on average is colorblind, and 1 in 100 women is colorblind. It's one of the more common disabilities. People don't think of disability. Also, my vision's not perfect. I see a lot of glasses in the room. Think about that kind of stuff when you're doing fonts and all those kind of things. It all adds up. So take your glasses off. Try to read your webpage. There's even tools online where you can do emulate color blindness online, and glaucoma, things like that too. I don't think many of your students have glaucoma, but there's ways and tools out there. Look for them, use them, ask us. We'll find the tools for you. We'll help you out. I took her mic so she can't talk. Any other questions that have come up at all? I really appreciate you guys kind of opening to us some of the issues you're having with Google Docs too, because that'll help everybody out.
Okay, well that's it. So I want to thank Janet and Matt for coming out, and Clay's not here.